Chapter 2745. There was no surprise at all. There were pros and cons. Until the end, no one knew what the result would be. Even his father did not know. It was still the same sentence. If his father could control the primal chaos energy within the primal chaos stone tablet, then he might be able to deduce the result. However, before his father could control the primal chaos energy, he could only vaguely do so. Vaguely, it made one feel helpless. Father, raising a tiger is inviting calamity. There will be endless trouble in the future. Never see you again. Master godly mathematician repeated these words in his heart. How could he not understand the meaning of Duga's words? This was also the most depressing thing for him. If he stepped over this stumbling block, then he could soar into the heavens. If he stepped over it, then he would walk into a bottomless abyss. Dugu, Longao, is too difficult to deal with. Although he was unwilling to admit it, the truth was in front of him. There was nothing he could do. Master godly mathematician had no solution. Yi Dugu also had no solution. Both father and son were extremely depressed. Scarlet Flame Town. Old site ruins. 3 months passed in the blink of an eye. Longao still did not move. Although he had not heard the slightest call in these 3 months, for some reason, Longao's state of mind was very calm at this moment. After experiencing countless life and death situations, Longao now seemed a little tired. In these 3 months, besides waiting for the call to sound again, he also had a good rest. In the Jianghu, one had no choice. After so many years, why had he worked so hard? Longao constantly asked himself in his heart. Soon, Longao had an answer in his heart. The reason he had worked so hard for so many years, besides protecting his family, was to pursue the peak of martial arts. The combination of the two, this was his goal, the goal of eternal life. The goal in his heart became clearer and clearer. Unknowingly, countless black dots of light appeared around Longao's body and began to slowly revolve around Longao. The rotation speed became faster and faster, faster and faster. In the end, Longao's figure could no longer be seen, and because of the countless black dots of light, because of the rotation, formed a huge black cocoon. The black cocoon did not emit any aura, and it slowly disappeared. In the vast, starry skies, the grudge between Longao and the 6 rulers of the galaxy had shaken the entire galaxy. Everyone was still talking about it, wondering what kind of sparks would fly when the two sides clashed. However, everyone had already guessed that Longao would be killed by the 6 star rulers. There was no doubt about that. The Starry Sky ruler was the most powerful being in the entire vast universe. Even though Longao had risen to power, he was still a little lacking compared to the Starry Sky ruler. Any one of them could easily deal with Longao, let alone the 6 star rulers. If Longao was so confident, why would he hide and not show his face? He didn't even care about his own family. In the end, it was because Longao believed that he didn't have the strength to contend with the 6 star rulers. Otherwise, why would Longao hide? Even so, Longao was still the idol in the hearts of countless people. Because for countless years, no one dared to provoke a half-step Starry Sky ruler. Longao could be said to be the first person to contend with the Starry Sky ruler. Since the incident in the Soaring Dragon Empire, the vast Starry Skies had been very calm. Even the 9 great Starry Sky empires, who had a life and death grudge with Longao, had completely calmed down. No one knew what was going on. Under normal circumstances, since Longao had been defeated, whether it was the 9 half-step Starry Sky rulers or the 6 half-step Starry Sky rulers, they should have taken advantage of the situation to pursue, lock onto Longao's position, and kill him. If you cut the grass without removing the roots, it will grow again when the spring breeze blows. Perhaps everyone knew this truth, let alone those who stood at the peak. They couldn't understand. No one in the vast Starry Skies knew that it wasn't that these peak experts didn't want to continue to kill Longao, but that they couldn't even find a trace of Longao, nor could they lock onto his position. Yun Qian, who was looking for Longao everywhere, of course knew all kinds of things about Longao. She was getting more and more worried. If it were other people, it wouldn't be a big deal. including the 9 great starry sky empires, the Peak Dragon clan, and the Peak Slaughter clan, because she firmly believed that Longao could deal with it. Only the starry sky ruler. Yun Qian knew better than anyone what a starry sky ruler meant, especially when it was not just one starry sky ruler but 6 star rulers. One starry sky ruler was difficult enough to deal with. If 6 star rulers joined forces, not to mention Longao, even her father would find it difficult to deal with them. No wonder Longao had to hide. It would be strange if he didn't hide in the face of 6 star rulers. Because of this, Yun Qian became more and more worried. She didn't know when the 6 star rulers would lock onto Longao's position. Once they locked onto his position, the consequences would be unimaginable. Yun Qian knew very well that it was impossible to find Longao's position by relying on her own strength. She also couldn't intervene in the feud between Longao and the 6 star rulers. The only way was to find her father. Peak Mysterious Clan. Halfway up a mountain with an extremely elegant environment, there was white mist lingering around, like a paradise on earth. Yunlu was worried about the Jianling Mountain. Even if countless years of preparation had failed, Yunlu would not choose to give up so easily. He was discussing with 2 elders to see what they could do to continue. Why are you back? Yunlu was very curious. His daughter said that she was going to find Longao, so why did she come back so quickly? However, Yunlu soon knew the answer. If there was no accident, didn't know where Longao was. Sure enough. Father, I want to know where Longao is right now. Immediately, right now. Yunlu couldn't do anything about his daughter. He nodded and immediately used the divine divination tablet in his body to calculate. However, as time passed, Yunlu's face became more and more serious. He groaned. Yunlu kept retreating. If the 2 elders hadn't supported him in time, he would have fallen to the ground. Father, what's wrong? Not only Yun Qian, but even the 2 elders' faces changed greatly. They didn't know what had happened to their clan leader. Why would he suddenly become like this? Could there be a problem with the divination? Yunlu's blood was boiling. He forcibly suppressed the divine divination tablet in his body. He opened his eyes and said with lingering fear, "If I hadn't stopped in time, I'm afraid I would be dead now." Chapter 2746. Die? Neither the 2 elders nor Yun Qian were able to react for a moment. Yunlu had truly grasped the power of chaos within the chaos tablet. Although he hadn't fully recovered from his injuries, it wouldn't be easy for him to truly die. Especially now. How could a divination predict death? Only a fool would believe that. However, the 3 of them knew very well that their father, Patriarch, wouldn't lie to them. What on earth had just happened? Patriarch, what's wrong? I don't know what's going on with Longao. I just calculated his position, and just as I was able to deduce some clues, I was counterattacked by a very terrifying force. Fortunately, I retreated quickly. His expression changed. Father, did something happen to Longao? I don't know. Yunlu didn't know what was going on either, but he'd never encountered such a situation before. This was the first time something like this had happened, and he was at a loss as to what to do. The more this was the case, the more worried Yun Qian became. Longao's situation is very bad. Go find him at this time. I don't care. Without waiting for Yunlu to finish speaking, Yun Qian had already roared furiously. How could she not know what her father meant? However, when it came to emotions, it was impossible for reason to suppress impulses. Before Yunlu could continue, Yun Qian said, "You locked me up before because you're my father, so I didn't want to say anything. If this happens again, I'll immediately die in front of you. My primordial spirit will self-destruct, and I won't even enter the cycle of reincarnation." Yunlu's expression instantly darkened because he knew his daughter's character very well. She would do what she said she would, but there was nothing he could do about it. Whether it was for public or private reasons, couldn't die. For public reasons, his daughter had already devoured the chaos tablet. If she was lucky, she could refine the tablet and become a ruler of the universe. A ruler of the universe was different from others. Even for his own family, a ruler of the universe was incomparably important. For private reasons, Qian was his daughter, his only daughter. How could he let anything happen to her? That was precisely why. Yunlu's expression was extremely ugly. After a moment of thought, he said, Qian, what do you want? Yun Qian didn't hold back and said, Father, I hope you can help Longao deal with the godly mathematician and the others. It seemed that his daughter was serious this time. Yunlu had always thought that Qian was only playing around with Longao. Even if they were serious, it wouldn't last for too long. He didn't believe in the so-called love at first sight. But now, it seemed that he had underestimated the situation. He did not want Qian and Longao to be together. Although Longao was talented and powerful, he did not want to see the two of them together. The reason was simple. In Yunlu's opinion, even if Longao's talent was extraordinary and his strength was formidable, the enemy he faced was similarly incomparably powerful. In that case, Longao couldn't even protect himself. How could he protect his daughter? If she didn't agree, would her daughter agree? Thinking of this, Yunlu felt very helpless in his heart. Qian, you know that if you do this, I'll be very worried about you. And I can't help Longao deal with the godly mathematician and the others. We have 6 starry sky sovereigns. Yunlu didn't continue, but the meaning of his words was very clear. Although he was the patriarch of the Peak Mysterious tribe, the tribe didn't belong to him alone. If he rashly became enemies with the 6 starry sky sovereigns, it wouldn't be a good thing for the clan. The 2 elders nodded in agreement. If it were any other matter, for the sake of the clan, Yun Qian might consider giving up. But when it came to Longao, she couldn't back down and give up. With a resolute expression, Yun Qian said, Father, since you don't want to help, then from now on, I, Yun Qian, am no longer a member of the Peak Mysterious tribe. Leaving the clan was a serious matter. Yunlu and the 2 elders didn't expect Qian to suddenly act like this. The 3 of them also didn't expect Qian's feelings for Longao to have reached such a level. He was very angry. However, at this time, Yunlu told himself that he absolutely couldn't act rashly. Otherwise, he would really lose a daughter. Qian, although it's impossible for the family to help Longao, I can personally help him, but not on the surface, but in the dark. This is my bottom line. Of course, Yun Qian didn't want to fall out with her father. If she did, it wouldn't do any good to her or Longao. She just wanted to fight for the greatest advantage for herself. After all, her father was very powerful. With his help, even if it was secretly, the situation would change. Yun Qian also knew in her heart that her father's actions were already very generous. If she wanted the entire family to help Longao, she didn't even need to think about it. It was almost impossible. Thinking of this, Yun Qian nodded and said, Father, I just hope that Longao will be fine. If he dies, I won't live alone. She didn't say anything else, but this sentence alone was enough. The 2 elders seemed to want to say something, but were stopped by Yunlu. He said helplessly, I know my daughter best. It seems that Qian has true feelings for Longao. If this is the case, as long as it is allowed, we can help Longao appropriately. Help? It was easy to say, but the 2 elders certainly knew that helping Longao was equivalent to offending the godly mathematician and the others. Those were 6 rulers of the starry sky, not cabbages that could be easily dealt with. Patriarch, if our clan really turns against the 6 of them, it will be a great hindrance to our plan. For a Longao, is it worth it? No matter how well they did it, there was no wall in the world that didn't have a crack. Moreover, the godly mathematician had devoured the godly divination chaos tablet. If they were unlucky, and this matter was found out by the 6, they could imagine the consequences. Not to mention, everyone knew about the grudge between the 6 of them and Longao. The 2 sides were like fire and water. If they helped Longao, whether it was openly or secretly, once the 6 of them found out, they would definitely think that the clan and Longao were working together to deal with them. However, Yunlu wasn't an indecisive person. He said, when the time comes, we have to be more careful. If we can help, we will. If we can't, then forget it. If we really reach the point of no return, even if it's my daughter, we have to abandon her. She chose to do so herself. She can't blame anyone. Yunlu nodded and said, when the time comes, we have to be careful. If we can help, then we will help. Chapter 2747. The two elders didn't think much of it. Give up on Qian-er? Even if the patriarch was willing, the family wouldn't be willing. Not to mention that Qian-er had already devoured a primal chaos stone tablet. Even before she had devoured a primal chaos stone tablet, they wouldn't give up on her. Of course, Yunlu wouldn't choose to give up on his daughter. But for the sake of the family, he could only do this. Retreat in order to advance. Patriarch, if it's appropriate to help Longao or behind his back, I don't think the rest of the family will have too much of a problem. The two were very clear. If it wasn't for the Jianling Mountain, they wouldn't have any problems helping Longao openly. But now wasn't the best time. That was what they wanted. Yunlu's face was filled with anger. You don't know the severity of the situation. Yun Qian angrily returned to her residence, but her heart was filled with worry. Now that Longao's life was unknown, especially just now, even her father's divination had a problem. It would be a lie to say that she wasn't worried. What should she do? She was helpless. Yun Qian didn't act rashly because she knew her own situation very well. She wanted to rely on her own strength to lock onto Longao's position. It was like a fool talking nonsense. It was almost impossible. But it seemed that it was impossible to rely on her father's strength to lock onto Longao's position. The more she thought about it, the darker her face became. At this moment, "Father, why are you here?" The two were father and daughter. How could there be any misunderstandings? Yunlu smiled and nodded. "Qian-er, you should understand my difficulties. Even if I want to help, the family might not agree. But I can promise you that as long as it doesn't harm the family's interests, I can help Longao. This is my bottom line and also the family's bottom line." How could Yun Qian not know her father's intentions? She also knew that this was her father's bottom line. If she asked for anything else, it would make things even more troublesome. "Father, I'm very worried about Longao's safety." I know. No one knew her better than her father. How could Yunlu not know about Qian-er's worries? But he still felt a lingering fear. If he hadn't retreated in time, the consequences would have been unimaginable. It was a thorny problem. Yunlu's expression was grave as he helplessly said, "Qian-er, I have no way of locking onto Longao's position. However, he should be fine for the time being." Of course, Yun Qian knew this. Even if he was fine now, it didn't mean that he would be fine in the future. "Father, what can we do now?"
Wait.
At this time, other than waiting, there seemed to be no other good way. After all, even he couldn't calculate Longao's position. It was obvious what this meant. Since he already knew the outcome, why bother wasting his time? Yunlu could disregard Longao's life and death, but Yun Qian couldn't. "Father." Looking at his daughter's worried yet determined face, Yunlu once again sighed deeply and said helplessly, "I'll go with you. However, I don't dare to guarantee that I'll be able to lock onto Longao's position." "I understand." Yun Qian was overjoyed. At this moment, only her father could help her. Other than him, there was probably no one else who could help her. Without the slightest hesitation, Yun Qian immediately pulled her father away from the clan. The longer they delayed, the more unfavorable it would be for Longao. The Tianwu continent, around the ruins of Scarlet Flame Town. 3 years passed in the blink of an eye. The black dots around Longao had gradually stopped rotating. For 3 whole years, the godly mathematician and Yi Dugu hadn't discovered anything. In the end, it was because Longao's Yuan spirit was strange enough that even the rulers of Starry Sky couldn't sense it. Under the eyes of 2 rulers of Starry Sky, only Longao could do such a thing. If it were anyone else, they would rather be beaten to death than do such a thing. It was too risky. It could be said that there was only a slim chance of survival. Once discovered, the consequences were obvious. The black light had stopped rotating and had been completely absorbed by Longao. Slowly opening his eyes, there was not the slightest expression on Longao's face. What's going on? Even now, Longao didn't know what was going on. For 3 years, his body had been completely out of his control. As for what had happened, he didn't know. He was helpless, but Longao could almost be sure of one thing, and that was that everything that had happened in the past 3 years was definitely good for him. For example, although he hadn't refined the secret domain to become a half-step ruler of Starry Sky, his strength had already surpassed the limit of Starry Sky Immortal Realm. He could almost contend with a half-step ruler of Starry Sky. What kind of concept was that? Not only that, Longao found that the secret domain within his body had been directly devoured by the Blackets. This was also the most shocking thing to him. Although the secret domain wasn't as good as the Primal Chaos Tablet, its power was still there. If he hadn't experienced it himself, he would have found it hard to believe. Longao didn't continue to dwell on this matter. His intuition told him that this matter was definitely not ordinary. As for the details, he would have to wait until later. In any case, he couldn't figure it out now. It had been 3 years, but the voice calling out to him still hadn't appeared. Even Longao was a bit annoyed. His time was limited, and he couldn't keep waiting here. 3 days. At most, he would stay for 3 more days. Longao had already decided that if the voice calling out to him didn't appear in 3 days, he would leave Scarlet Flame Town. As for after that, he could openly leave the Martial Heaven continent. Whether or not the God Diviner knew about it was no longer important. Longao was still sitting in the ruins, sensing the movement in the surroundings. He hoped that he would be able to sense the voice calling out to him within 3 days. 3 days later, Longao stood up and sighed deeply. He hadn't sensed the voice calling out to him. Since that was the case, there wasn't much point in him staying here. It would just be a waste of his time. Thinking of this, Longao didn't continue staying here. He took a step forward and left. But what was the result? As soon as he left Scarlet Flame Town, Longao's expression changed. It was very strange. He had never imagined that the voice calling out to him would be so intense. Just what was going on here? Although he was very curious, Longao still turned and left. However, as soon as he entered Scarlet Flame Town, the voice calling out to him came to an abrupt stop. This time, Longao was completely dumbfounded. He looked around in a daze, not knowing why the figure calling out to him had suddenly appeared and then disappeared. Chapter 2748. At this moment, Longao could be considered to be completely depressed to the extreme. After several times, Longao finally knew what was going on. As long as he left the Red Fire Town, even if it was just half a step, the calling would immediately appear, and it would be extremely strong. The result? As long as he took half a step into the Red Fire Town, the calling would immediately stop and disappear without a trace. What was going on? Longao didn't know, and he didn't know what was going on. Leaving was equivalent to choosing to give up. If the calling would no longer appear, then it would be fine. But as long as he left, the calling would appear. He was really unwilling to give up so easily. Not choosing to give up? Even if he didn't choose to give up, what could he do? After all, as long as he stepped into the Red Fire Town, the calling would disappear. It was hard to do. He couldn't advance, and he couldn't retreat. Longao sat down on the ruins and looked around helplessly. What should he do now? After waiting for several hours, Longao finally stood up and came to the edge of the Red Fire Town. Things had already come to this point. He absolutely couldn't choose to give up. The only way to not give up was to come to the edge of the Red Fire Town. In this case, the calling would definitely appear. Although only half of it would appear, it was more than enough for him. Just when Longao was full of confidence and thought that he could deal with the calling. But the result? The calling still didn't appear. When his left foot stepped out of the edge, the calling instantly appeared. His body absolutely couldn't take half a step into the Red Fire Town. Staring at the Red Fire Town in front of him, Longao didn't continue to step out of the Red Fire Town. He gently closed his eyes and began to sense the red fire town in front of him. Gradually, the black light spots that had been swallowed by Longao before began to crazily emerge and surround Longao. The black light spots began to slowly rotate, and the rotation speed was getting faster and faster. He was instantly delighted. Abruptly opening his eyes, Longao controlled the black dots of light around his body. Without further hesitation, he took a step forward and disappeared from where he stood. Longao was also holding an attitude of trying. As for whether it would succeed or not, it was really unknown before the results were out. The black of light had been revolving around him for 3 years. Longao guessed that the black dots of light had something to do with the voice that was calling out to him. As expected, Longao's speed soared to the extreme. He arrived in the blink of an eye. Looking at the destination in front of him, Longao seemed to be a little dumbfounded because he never thought that the voice calling out to him would come from this place. The voice that called out to Longao did not come from any other place, but from Scarlet Fire Town. The ancestral hall of the Long family in Crimson Fire Town was the place where Master God Diviner had sealed the primordial rock. Longao had already concealed his aura, so Yi Dugu and the godly mathematician still could not sense his aura. Until now. Even if you beat Master God Diviner and Yi Dugu to death, they probably would not have thought that Longao would have the guts to enter the Sky Martial continent right under their noses. The most dangerous place was also the safest place. Longao released his own Yuan spirit aura and directly covered the entire cave, not letting go of a single inch. His intuition told him that there was definitely something that was going on. As for where the voice calling out to him came from, that was unknown. However, things had already reached this point. No matter what happened, he could not choose to give up. He had to settle this matter. There was no response. Longao was not the slightest bit discouraged because he did not have the slightest confidence in using his Yuan spirit aura to cover the cave. Even if he failed, it would be reasonable. However, Longao quickly began to move the black dots of light in his body. However, he helplessly found that the black dots of light in his body had completely disappeared. Even he was unable to move them. Could it be that this was fate? The black dots of light had only brought him to Scarlet Flame Town, but they had disappeared without a trace. If that was the case, it would not be easy for him to find the final result. Longao began to slowly check it himself. He checked it bit by bit and was especially careful. 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. Just as Longao was still searching for the voice calling out to him, the situation suddenly changed. 2 powerful auras suddenly appeared outside. There was no need to ask. It was definitely the godly mathematician, and Yi Dugu. He was helpless. Although Longao was very confident in his own strength, he also knew his own limits. Let alone fighting 2 rulers of the starry sky alone. Even if any one of them came out, he would not be a match for them. Especially at this time, he would not fight them head-on, because doing so would not benefit him in the slightest. Without the slightest hesitation, he turned and disappeared without a trace. In an instant, the godly mathematician and Yi Dugu had already entered the cave. As soon as they stood still, Yi Dugu curiously asked, "Father, what are we doing here?" Yi Dugu was very curious. He didn't know why his father had suddenly called him over. As for what this was about, his father didn't say, so he didn't know. The godly mathematician's expression was grave. He said uncertainly, "I don't know if there's a problem with my senses, but just now, I suddenly sensed Longao's aura here." Ah! After hearing his father's words, Yi Dugu was very shocked because he never would have thought that his father would bring him here because of this. However, Yi Dugu immediately shook his head. He felt that this was almost impossible. Even if Longao was arrogant, it was impossible for him to be like this right under his nose. It was almost unimaginable. Yi Dugu smiled. "Father, isn't that a bit impossible? If Longao had stepped onto the Martial Heaven continent, how could we not know?" Yi Dugu wanted to say that his father had sensed wrong, but he didn't say it. After all, even saints could make mistakes, let alone his own father. How could the godly mathematician not know what his son was thinking? He smiled and said, Perhaps I sensed wrong. If we sensed it at the same time, then it might be true. Sigh, after all these years, we haven't been able to kill Longao. It really is a problem. The divine mathematician didn't continue to speak, but the meaning of his words was very clear. They were 6 dignified rulers of the starry sky, but they couldn't kill Longao. Perhaps no one would believe this. It would be a lie to say that they weren't oppressed. Chapter 2749. Yi Dugu was also helpless against Longao. This was fate. Yi Dugu didn't say anything. He didn't know what to say at this time. He sighed deeply. Let's go. Yi Dugu nodded. The god diviner also felt that he was being overly sensitive. Thinking about it, he felt that it was impossible. Unless Longao was courting death, how could he casually step into the martial sky continent? Taking a step back. Even if Longao wanted to enter the martial sky continent, how could the two of them not sense it? Thinking of this, the god diviner and Yi Dugu didn't stay. They turned and left. In a short while, the two of them disappeared without a trace. As soon as the two of them left, Longao's figure appeared in front of them. This was just a small interlude. However, Longao was very careful. He didn't dare to be careless. This didn't mean that he was afraid of the two of them. After all, he had the protection of the primal chaos palace. Even if all the rulers of the universe worked together, they wouldn't be able to trap him. This was the power of the primal chaos palace. Hiding his aura, Longao continued to carefully observe the situation in the cave. Since he had stepped into the cave, the voice calling out to him had disappeared. If he wanted to find the secret, he could only rely on himself. After searching for many days, Longao made an inconspicuous discovery. Longao was a little surprised. In the southeast corner of the cave, in an inconspicuous place, there was a strange pattern that released traces of aura. If he hadn't accidentally sensed this aura, it wouldn't have been easy to find this place. A seal? Longao was very surprised. He had never imagined that this inconspicuous place would release the aura of a seal. What did this mean? Longao was no fool. His intuition told him that the voice calling out to him had to come from within the seal. He tried to release the aura of his Yuan spirit. As soon as it touched the aura of the seal, the voice calling out to him suddenly stopped. It was too strange. Even Longao couldn't make up his mind. He didn't know what to do at this time. Break the seal? Or would he choose to leave? Longao was very clear in his heart that if he forcefully broke the seal without understanding the situation, it would be disadvantageous to him when the time came. He would be looking for trouble. However, if he chose to give up and this was his chance, wouldn't he regret it to death? He was very conflicted. For a moment, Longao didn't know what to do. Longao, save me. Longao was almost certain that the voice calling out to him came from within the seal. But at this moment, suddenly, an extremely weak voice came from within the seal. Longao was not unfamiliar with this voice at all. It was simply too familiar. He was stunned for a moment, and his face was filled with disbelief. He did not know what was going on at all. Without the slightest hesitation, Longao used all his strength, but before he broke the seal, he used his primordial spirit to set up a chi shield around the seal. In this way, no matter how big the movement was, at least the godly mathematician and Yi Dugu would not be able to sense it. Longao didn't want the two of them to come out and disturb him. After dealing with the energy shield, Longao finally dared to break the seal. His attack failed. Of course, Longao would not choose to give up just like that. Instead, he began to attack crazily. One attack after another, it was continuous, as if he could topple mountains and overturn seas. After hundreds of attacks, the seal finally couldn't hold on any longer. With a bang, the seal was broken. A figure instantly appeared, but as soon as he appeared, he collapsed to the ground. Longao helped him up. Long Batian, what's going on? The person being sealed was none other than Long Batian. Back on the martial heaven continent, he had been Longao's ancestor. However, he had been a follower of Master God Diviner. Longao remembered that after he had left the martial heaven continent, Yi Dogu and Long Batian had followed him into the starry sky. However, Yi Dogu had returned to the martial heaven continent and had completely fallen out with him. As for Long Batian, he didn't know where he had gone. So he had been sealed here. Longao didn't know why Long Batian had been sealed here. As for who had sealed Long Batian, Longao didn't even need to ask. It had to be Master God Diviner and Yi Dogu. As he had expected, Longao, back when you had a falling out with Yi Dogu, he vented his anger on me. Not only did he seal me, but he also constantly humiliated me. Longao sighed deeply inside. Longao felt very guilty and blamed himself. If it weren't for him, Yi Dogu wouldn't have vented his anger on Long Batian and caused him to suffer such a fate. Long Batian, there's something I don't understand. Since you were sealed here by Yi Dogu, how are you able to summon me? Longao truly couldn't understand this. Let alone the fact that the martial heaven continent was so far away. Even if he had been sealed within the martial heaven continent, summoning him wouldn't have been easy. Furthermore, he had to be on guard against Yi Dogu and the God Diviner. He didn't know how Long Batian had managed to do this. Longao, you have your own plans. You and I are of the same race. Perhaps others can't do it, but that doesn't mean I can't. Although I can do it, I don't have the slightest confidence. If I couldn't summon you, I would have immediately killed myself. I wouldn't have allowed Yi Dogu to humiliate me again. The more Long Batian acted like this, the more Longao blamed himself. No matter what, Long Batian was still his ancestor. If this matter was known by his grandfather and father, who knew how the family would blame him. But fortunately, nothing happened to the ancestor, which was a blessing in disguise. Longao, how are you and the God Diviners? Longao didn't hide much from Long Batian. He gave him a rough explanation of what had happened, leaving out many details. But even so, Long Batian was still shaken to the core. Just at this moment, just as Longao was caught off guard, just as Longao let his guard down, even if he was beaten to death, he wouldn't have imagined what would happen next. After all, Long Batian's status was right there. Long Batian, who had been incomparably weak, suddenly slammed his palms toward Longao. Not only that, but he was also using an incomparably powerful starry sky divine item. Long Batian was completely confident that under such a sneak attack, and with his full power, Longao would definitely die. The situation had come so suddenly that Longao didn't even have time to react. Chapter 2750.
Ugh.
Spitting out a mouthful of blood, Longao's body flew out like a kite with a broken string. Long Batian was now a half-step star ruler. As for how he broke through, only he himself would know. If it were anyone else, even a half-step star ruler of the same level, they would be dead by now. But Longao stood up. With the protection of the 9-colored lotus essence spirit, Longao was practically immortal. Even the godly mathematician could not kill him, let alone Long Batian. His face was unusually grim. Longao had never thought that Long Batian would sneak an attack on him.
Why?
Long Batian was shocked. He had thought that Longao would be dead for sure after taking that hit. But the result? Longao was only a peak star immortal. What was going on? He could not figure it out. But Long Batian was not too worried. Even if Longao was not dead, he would be in a half-dead state. Before Long Batian could say anything, ha ha ha, ha ha ha, ha 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 ha. Along with the maniacal laughter, the godly mathematician and Yi Dogu's figures appeared. So that was it. Looking at the sudden appearance of the godly mathematician and Yi Dogu, Longao knew what was going on. If he was not wrong, Long Batian had joined forces with the two of them to deal with him. This time, the three of them had done it on purpose. However, what Longao couldn't figure out was, since the three of them had done it on purpose, why were they able to sense him when he left the Scarlet Fire Town but not when he entered? Were they not afraid that he would choose to give up? As though he could guess what Longao was thinking, Yi Dogu chuckled. If it were too simple, wouldn't you be suspicious? Longao, in order to deal with you, we've put in a lot of effort. Indeed. Longao's face darkened. But since things had come to this, he calmed down. He knew clearly that he had to be calm at times like this. He must not be rash. Long Batian, you're really good. Longao had truly treated Long Batian as one of his own. He had never thought that Long Batian would do something like this to him. If it wasn't for the 9-colored lotus protecting his body, he would have already died. How could he still be standing here? He was extremely furious. It would be a lie to say that he wasn't angry. However, Longao suppressed the anger in his heart. The three of them were fearless now because they had something to rely on. If it was just a simple attack from Long Batian, Longao wouldn't have cared at all. Even if he was injured, it wouldn't have mattered. However, the current situation was obviously different. When Long Batian launched the sneak attack just now, he used a very overbearing starry sky divine tool. In other words, the current Longao was just suppressing himself to not fall down. Even if he did not die, his injuries were definitely not light. Seeing the expression on Longao's face, the three of them could already guess what Longao was thinking. The three of them laughed. Longao, don't blame me. A good tree chooses birds to perch on. If it were you and the two masters, you would have done the same. Endless contempt. Longao did not expect Long Batian to be so shameless and shameless. He said mockingly, Long Batian, don't talk nonsense. Today's enmity, I will definitely repay it double in the future. Do you think you can still leave? Long Batian certainly didn't believe that he could leave safely. What a joke. Longao had just taken a hit from him, and it was with a starry sky divine tool. Moreover, there were two masters here. It was impossible for Longao to leave. Not only did Long Batian not believe it, but the marvelous mathematician also didn't quite believe it. The marvelous mathematician smiled and said, as long as you cripple your own cultivation and hand over all your secrets and treasures, I can spare your life. However, from now on, you can't leave this place. How about it? Seal. Longao understood Master God Diviner's intentions. Therefore, he decided to enter the Primal Chaos Palace. Although he didn't know what was going on here, he knew that this place was capable of sealing the Primal Chaos Great Prone. Moreover, it had even interfered with his entry into the Primal Chaos Palace. It seemed that this place was not as simple as he had imagined. He felt very helpless. The Chaos Palace was his biggest reliance, but now he couldn't enter it. In this case, it would be difficult for him to escape from the three masters' joint attack. Even if he had the 9-colored lotus yuan spirit protecting his body and had an immortal body, it didn't mean everything. Longao, this is your only choice. Let me give you a piece of advice. A wise man submits to circumstances. Also, if you agree, I can guarantee you that the Soaring Dragon Empire will be free of worries from now on. No matter who it is, no one will attack the Soaring Dragon Empire. Hearing the marvelous mathematician's words, Long Batian was very surprised. He couldn't figure out why the marvelous mathematician would do this when things had already reached this point. After all, dealing with Longao at this time was almost certain. However, the marvelous mathematician didn't think so. After all the previous events, the marvelous mathematician was very afraid of Longao. This time, he had lured Longao into a trap. If he still couldn't kill or seal the Longao, he would even have the heart to kill himself. Moreover, with the previous lesson, the marvelous mathematician was more and more worried that Longao would become a threat to him in the future. If that really happened, he wouldn't even have the chance to regret. Of course, the marvelous mathematician didn't want that to happen. Long Batian didn't know what the marvelous mathematician meant, but how could Yi Dogu not know? If it were in the past, he wouldn't have chosen to compromise like this, especially when dealing with a mere peak starry sky immortal. However, the situation was completely different now. Even if Longao's strength was low, everything about him was so mysterious that even they couldn't do anything about it. Especially the Space God tool in Longao's hand. It was too strange and powerful. Even they couldn't lock onto Longao's position. If that wasn't the case, Longao wouldn't be so arrogant. Although he was very unhappy, there was nothing he could do. Would Longao agree? If Longao chose to compromise, then he wouldn't be Longao. Moreover, Longao was no fool. Even if he allowed himself to be captured and Master God Diviner didn't make a move, that didn't mean that others wouldn't either. In the Empire, before someone fully assimilated the primal chaos steel, he absolutely couldn't die. Especially now. As for being sealed or reincarnated, that was even more impossible. Thinking of this, Longao suddenly laughed. Master Marvelous Mathematician, I really don't understand. We didn't have any grudges before. We could even be considered friends. Why would you make a move against me? Chapter 2751. He couldn't figure it out. Even if Master God Diviner was afraid of him, this reason was a bit ridiculous. He and Master God Diviner had been friends before. It was just that Master God Diviner wanted to shed all pretense of cordiality. Master God Diviner was a bit confused. From beginning to end, he had been constantly provoking and trying to kill Longao. Why was he doing this? Afraid? Master God Diviner sighed helplessly. He would rather kill 1,000 innocents than let one go. Although he hadn't calculated whether Longao would really be his enemy in the future, he would rather believe it than not. He didn't want to cause trouble for himself in the future. Even the slightest bit of trouble. There's no reason to kill you. Yi Dugu sneered. Others might not know the reason, but how could he not know? Seeing that Master God Diviner didn't say anything, Longao didn't continue to ask. No matter what, things had already reached this point. Their enmity had reached an irreversible point. Either you die or I die. To describe it in 2 words, fire and water were incompatible. Do you think you can keep me here? Seeing Longao so calm, Master God Diviner and Yi Dugu didn't know why, but they didn't feel confident. They had been ruined by Longao. As for Long Batian, he didn't know what Longao had done. Although he was already a half-step ruler, he had stayed in the Martial Heaven continent for so many years. He hadn't taken a single step out. Because of this, Long Batian was very curious. He didn't know why the two of them still hadn't made a move when Longao was meat on the chopping block. However, since they didn't say anything, Long Batian didn't dare to say anything. Although Long Batian's cultivation base had smoothly broken through to half-step ruler, he didn't even have the most basic dignity in front of the two of them. Whether it was Master God Diviner or Yi Dugu, if they wanted to kill Long Batian, it would be done in a matter of minutes. How could Long Batian not know this? Even if he didn't want to do this, there was nothing he could do. Unless he devoured the Primal Chaos Tablet and became a ruler, he couldn't change anything. Both sides stared at each other, and neither side dared to act rashly. As far as Master God Diviner and Yi Dugu were concerned, they had to succeed in a single strike. Otherwise, if Longao escaped, all their previous efforts would have been for naught. Could Longao enter the Starry Sky Divine Artifact? Even now, it was still a mystery. That was indeed the case. Master God Diviner and Yi Dugu didn't dare to gamble. Setting up such a trap wasn't easy. Longao had already fallen into the trap. If they missed this opportunity, who knew if there would be another one? No matter what, he could not miss this opportunity. It was a sure hit attack. The three of them didn't know about Longao's situation. The truth was that Longao was the most depressed of all. For some unknown reason, he was suddenly unable to enter the Primal Chaos Hall. Although it was safe to say that Master God Diviner and the others weren't certain that he would be able to enter the Primal Chaos Hall, he wasn't willing to gamble. If they couldn't escape easily, the consequences would be unimaginable. What should he do? Longao's face didn't show the slightest emotion, but he was extremely anxious. At that moment, Master God Diviner and Yi Dugu finally made their move. Under normal circumstances, Master God Diviner and Yi Dugu wouldn't team up to deal with a person, especially one who was a peak Starry Sky immortal. However, Longao's situation was clearly different. Previously, 6 Starry Sky rulers had joined forces, yet they had failed to kill Longao. The two were very worried and didn't want to miss this opportunity. They had no choice but to continue working together. As long as they could kill Longao, losing face was worth it. After all, In front of Longao, face was no longer important. Master God Diviner and Yi Dugu went all out as soon as they arrived. As for Long Batian, he didn't make a move. Instead, he stood at the back, watching everything in front of him. If something unexpected happened, it wouldn't be too late for him to make a move. However, Long Batian knew very well that nothing could go wrong with the two masters working together. Although Long Ao was very confident in his strength, he also knew his limits when facing two starry sky rulers. Even if it was a one-on-one fight, he wouldn't be a match for them, let alone one against two. Especially at this moment, he couldn't afford to make the slightest mistake. Although he couldn't enter the Primal Chaos Palace, he could use time teleportation. However, Long Ao's time teleportation didn't have the slightest advantage over the two masters because their speed was so fast that it was comparable to time teleportation.
Boom. Boom.
Master God Diviner and Yi Dugu hit Long Ao one after another. The moment their palms hit Long Ao's body flew out violently and fell to the ground. The entire cave seemed to tremble. They were overjoyed. Just a moment ago, they were still wondering whether their trap could suppress Long Ao from entering the Starry Sky Divine Tool. Now, it seemed that they had succeeded. If Long Ao could enter the Starry Sky Divine Tool, then there was no doubt that Long Ao would choose to enter the Starry Sky Divine Tool instead of fighting them head-on. In that case, the two masters were completely relaxed. They were only worried about Long Ao's Starry Sky Divine Tool, not Long Ao's strength. They didn't continue to attack. Looking at Long Ao, who was struggling to get up from the ground, they were actually very shocked. If it were someone else, they would have died without a doubt after being hit by their full strength. Even Starry Sky rulers of the same level wouldn't dare to do that, let alone a peak Starry Sky immortal expert. But Long Ao? Not only did he not die, but he also didn't suffer any serious injuries. If they hadn't seen it with their own eyes, they wouldn't have believed it even if they were beaten to death. Because of this, they were almost certain that Long Ao must have some kind of secret. Otherwise, Long Ao wouldn't have been able to survive. As for what kind of secret it was, although they didn't know, their hearts were filled with greed. If they could obtain such a secret, then it would be like adding wings to a tiger. However, Long Ao couldn't enter the Starry Sky Divine Tool, so they didn't continue to worry. Looking at Long Ao in front of him, Master God Diviner said with a smile, "Long Ao, what I just said still stands. If you agree, not only will you not die, but the Soaring Dragon Empire will also be fine. If you don't agree, then sorry, not only will you die, but the Soaring Dragon Empire behind you will also go to hell with you. What do you think?" Chapter 2752. Long Batian was even more surprised. He did not know what Master Godly Mathematician meant. Long Ao was obviously a piece of meat on the chopping board, waiting to be slaughtered. As long as the two lords were willing, they could easily deal with Long Ao at any time. But what was the result? If the weeds were cut without removing the roots, they would grow again when the spring breeze blew. It was still the same sentence. Long Batian did not dare to say anything. Hearing Master Godly Mathematician's words, Long Ao smiled. Without saying anything, he held the Primal Chaos Axe in his hand and directly swung it at the two. The second axe of the Primal Chaos, 9 axes, devouring the heavens. If it were anyone else's attack, the two Starry Sky rulers would definitely not take it seriously. However, Long Ao's attack was something that even Master Godly Mathematician and Yi Dugu did not dare to face head-on. Cracks in the starry sky began to appear around them, as if the entire sky was about to be devoured. Master Godly Mathematician and Yi Dugu were already used to it, but this was the first time Long Batian saw it. Was this still a peak starry sky immortal? They were completely scared out of their wits. However, Long Batian's reaction was fast enough. He quickly followed the two and dodged. If they wanted to enter the Primal Chaos Palace, they had to break the shackles here. Otherwise, if this continued, they would undoubtedly die. They did not dare to be careless. Without giving the three of them any chance, the Primal Chaos Axe in Long Ao's hand continuously hacked at the surroundings of a cave. One axe after another, it was as if they could topple the mountains and overturn the seas. The violent strikes were like a violent storm, causing the entire cave to tremble violently. Master godly mathematician and Yi Dugu were not fools. They immediately understood Longao's intention. The two were really anxious. They never thought that Longao would be so strong. Not daring to have the slightest hesitation, the two of them separately began to surround Longao from the left and right. They absolutely could not let Longao leave easily. Otherwise, everything they did this time would be in vain, and all their efforts would be in vain. No one wanted to see such an outcome. Longao must die. While swinging wildly, Longao tried to enter the primal chaos palace. However, he was helpless. Under normal circumstances, his primal chaos 9 axes should have destroyed the cave. But what was the result? It was only trembling intensely, but it was still not destroyed. This kind of confinement was a little scary. If this continued, who knew how long it would take to break the confinement? If it was any other time, he could take as long as he wanted. But now, the situation was critical. It could even be said that this was the moment between life and death. Time was life. The longer he delayed, the more disadvantageous it would be for him. In the blink of an eye, Longao's frenzied chopping speed became faster and faster, and only a series of afterimages could be seen. Master God Diviner and Yi Dugu couldn't even get close to him. After all, Longao's attack had caused rifts to appear in the starry sky. Not even the starry sky ruler would dare to face such heaven-defying power head-on. What should he do? Once Longao broke the shackles and entered the starry sky spirit artifact, then all of their efforts would be for naught. He absolutely could not allow Longao to break out of the shackles. Master God Diviner, Yi Dugu, and even Long Batian, who had been watching from the sidelines, began to fight back. Longao was already injured. Although it wasn't life-threatening, there was a limit to his power. If this continued, he would be sealed by the three of them. What should he do? What should he do? What should he do? Longao asked himself over and over again. This was a moment of life and death. Ha ha ha. Ha ha ha. Longao, you're going to die today. Let me give you a word of advice. You'd better surrender. Otherwise, shut up, you motherless child. Yi Dugu hated it when people said he didn't have a mother. From the beginning to the end, he didn't even know what his mother looked like. His father had never told him. It could be said that his mother was a complete stranger to him. Longao, I'll kill you. Yi Dugu went completely crazy. However, Longao didn't show the slightest fear. He smiled and said, I've already said that the three of you want to keep me here? Keep dreaming. Seeing Longao's confident and calm face, Master God Diviner didn't know why his heart skipped a beat. Could it be that Longao still had some tricks up his sleeve? If they couldn't keep Longao here, they really didn't know what to do in the future. After all, they had prepared for a long time to set up this trap. All of a sudden, a huge palace suddenly appeared in the cave. After enveloping Longao, it began to shrink rapidly. Before long, it had shrunk to the size of a few people laughing. A starry sky spirit artifact. Looking at the palace in front of them, both Yi Dugu and the marvelous mathematician knew very well that the palace in front of them was definitely the starry sky divine tool in Longao's hands. It was an incomparably heaven-defying starry sky divine tool that even they could not lock onto. This mysterious space-time divine tool had finally appeared in the world. It would be a lie to say that they didn't want it. Their eyes shone brightly, and their faces were filled with greed. They couldn't wait to get their hands on this space-time divine tool. Longao's space-time divine tool was too powerful. Even they couldn't lock onto its location. Just thinking about it made them excited. Attack. The two of them didn't hesitate at all. They immediately attacked the space-time divine tool in front of them. According to their calculations, even if Longao's space-time divine tool was powerful, it was mysterious at best. Now that it had appeared, they should be able to break the space-time divine tool with their combined strength. But the result? No matter how crazily they attacked, the space-time divine tool in front of them didn't react at all. The more they attacked, the more shocked they became. They had never heard of such a space-time divine tool. Father, what kind of space-time divine tool is this? Why is it so powerful? Longao was shocked to the extreme. In his worldview, the Starry Sky Dominator was invincible, especially when there were two Starry Sky Dominators. They represented the symbol of invincibility. But he never thought that when dealing with Longao, who was already injured, not only did he fail to kill him in one blow, but he also had to use so much effort. What was going on? It completely overturned Longbao's previous thoughts. Even so, Longbao's heart didn't waver. In his view, even if Longao could temporarily resist the joint attack of the two Starry Sky Dominators, the gap between the two sides was too big. They weren't on the same level at all. Especially now, Longao would undoubtedly die. As for Longao's space-time divine tool, Longao was a little greedy. Although he knew that it wouldn't be his turn, he still marveled at the power of this space-time divine tool. Chapter 2753. Master Godly Mathematician's expression was solemn. However, he was more pleasantly surprised than anything else. In his view, the more powerful Longao's spatial artifact was, the more advantageous it would be for him. If he could obtain it, he would be like a tiger that had grown wings. If he could obtain this heaven-defying spatial artifact, even if he had to face a starry sky ruler like the white-clothed girl, he would be able to enter the spatial artifact and be in an invincible position. Just thinking about it made him excited. I must obtain this starry sky divine artifact. Yidogu had already guessed his father's intention. Let alone his father, even the other starry sky rulers would want to obtain such a heaven-defying spatial artifact. Father, since Longao has entered the spatial starry sky divine tool, it will not be easy for us to break the spatial starry sky divine tool. At this point, Yidogu did not continue, but the meaning in his words was very clear. How could Master Godly Mathematician not know? We have already sealed off the cave. It is impossible for Longao to rely on the spatial artifact to leave. Moving Longao out of the Primal Chaos Palace was the only way out. He did not know what kind of power the two had used to seal off the cave. If they had not done so, the consequences would have been unimaginable. Longao was also very depressed that the Primal Chaos Palace could not enter his body. Father, why don't we find the other four and find a way to deal with the spatial artifact?
No.
What a joke. Master Godly Mathematician was determined to obtain Longao's starry sky divine artifact. If he found the other four, it would be unknown who would obtain the starry sky divine artifact. Master Godly Mathematician would never do such a thing. Yidogu naturally understood his father's intention, but the situation was clearly different now. It seemed difficult to break through the spatial artifact with just the two of them. If they could gather the power of the other four starry sky rulers, they might be able to break through the spatial artifact. However, Yidogu knew his father's character well. Once he had decided on something, he would not change his mind. Yidogu and Master Godly Mathematician joined forces to attack the Primal Chaos Palace. In the blink of an eye, 3 months passed. No matter what method they used, they could not break through the spatial artifact. What was the reason? The two of them were completely shocked. He had seen powerful starry sky divine artifacts before, but he had never seen such a powerful starry sky divine artifact. If he had not seen it with his own eyes, he would not have believed that such a terrifying starry sky divine artifact existed in the vast starry sky. No wonder Longao was so fearless. With such a heaven-defying starry sky divine weapon, unless one was unlucky, they could do whatever they wanted in the vast starry sky. What should he do? Since he couldn't break the starry sky divine artifact, he couldn't just stay here forever, right? Both Yidogu and Master God Diviner had very serious expressions on their faces. Everything had been set up perfectly, and yet Longao had managed to slip into the starry sky god item. Depressing. Facing Longao was simply depressing to the extreme. As for Longao, He did not dare to say a word from the beginning to the end. However, he was also shocked to the extreme because he did not expect that Longao would have such a heaven-defying starry sky divine tool. If he could get it, he would not be afraid of the clairvoyant master and Yidugu. However, that was just a thought. Long Batian did not dare to do so. If he could not get the starry sky divine tool, he would undoubtedly die. Time seemed to have frozen. Inside the Chaos Palace, Longao was not as angry as he had imagined. Of course, he could understand Long Batian's actions. After all, the clairvoyant master and Yidugu were very strong. Even if Long Batian was a half-step starry sky ruler, he would not be able to withstand two starry sky rulers. Moreover, Long Batian could become a half-step starry sky ruler because of these two people. Without them, Long Batian would not have achieved what he had today. He had not thought it through. If he had contacted Long Batian earlier, things would not have turned out this way. Although he was not angry, he could not easily give up on Long Batian's plot against him. If there was a grudge, he would take revenge. Sooner or later, he would take revenge. After Long Ao entered the Chaos Palace, he immediately began to recover from his injuries. With the protection of the nine-colored lotus primordial spirit, it was impossible for him to die. Even if he was injured, as long as it did not affect his primordial spirit, he would recover very quickly. As early as a month ago, Long Ao had recovered from his injuries. However, Long Ao did not leave the Chaos Palace. Even if he used his butt to think, he knew that the clairvoyant master and Yidugu must have not left the cave. As long as he left the Chaos Palace, he would definitely be attacked fiercely by the two. At this time, he must not be impulsive. It did not matter if he was in danger. The main thing was that the soaring dragon empire was waiting for him to save it. Long Ao was also very helpless. With his current strength, he could even fight a half-step starry sky ruler. However, he had no way to deal with the starry sky ruler. The starry sky ruler was too strong. Long Ao knew that unless he refined the chaos tablet in his body and became a starry sky ruler, he would always be suppressed by the clairvoyant master. It was easy to think about refining a chaos tablet, but it was very difficult to actually do it. Ever since he had swallowed the attributeless chaos stone tablet, Long Ao had tried countless methods to refine it, but to no avail. Sometimes, Long Ao even thought of exchanging for another Chaos Stone tablet. However, he did not know why, but Long Ao always felt that the attributeless Chaos tablet he had devoured was not simple. He had always believed in his intuition. Time passed quickly. Time was nothing to Starry Sky cultivators. Some Starry Sky cultivators would go into seclusion for thousands of years, even tens of thousands of years. The clairvoyant master and Yidugu certainly would not choose to give up. They had been guarding the cave. Long Ao also did not leave the Chaos Palace. Let's compete in patience. Let's compete in patience. Let's see who can lose patience first. As for what the two were thinking, how could Long Ao not know? If nothing unexpected happened, the two would not find other Starry Sky rulers to deal with him. The reason was very simple. The clairvoyant master had seen his Chaos Palace and wanted to take it for himself. How could he find other people to share a piece of the cake with him? What a joke. This would give him an opportunity. Because Long Ao did not know if the 6 Starry Sky rulers could break the Chaos Palace if they joined forces to attack it. Chapter 2754. The two sides were in a stalemate. Whoever lost their patience first would be the loser. Time passed quickly. Inside the cave, Yidugu could not wait any longer because he did not know what was going on inside the spatial artifact. If Long Ao was trying to lure them away, all their efforts would be in vain. Father, what should we do now? Are we going to keep waiting like this? Yidugu could not figure it out. Even if his father wanted to seize the spatial artifact, if he could not even break it, everything else would be in vain. The only way now was to find the other 4 sovereigns of Starry Sky and work together to break the spatial artifact. Long Batian still did not speak, but he was more and more shocked. He had seen powerful spatial artifacts, but He had never seen such a powerful one. Even two sovereigns of starry sky could not do anything about it. He did not know how Longao got it. It would be a lie to say that he was not anxious. No one was more anxious than the marvelous mathematician. The marvelous mathematician was almost certain that Longao would become a big problem for him in the future. It was because of this that he had to eliminate the root of the problem. However, the spatial artifact in Longao's hand was too powerful. They had always thought that as long as they could lock onto the spatial artifact, they could completely destroy Longao. After all, in their view, the spatial artifact was Longao's greatest reliance. But now it seemed that their previous guess was simply wrong. Longao's Starry Sky Divine Tool was not only difficult to lock onto, even if they were lucky enough to lock onto it, it was not an easy thing to break this Starry Sky Divine Tool. At the very least, the three of them could not do it. It was very depressing. They did not even think about such a thing before. For them, it was a humiliation, a great humiliation. Dugu, calm down. Since Longao is hiding inside, he can't leave here. If it were anyone else, he would have said that. But facing Longao, Dugu had no confidence at all. He absolutely could not miss this opportunity. Father, other than waiting here, is there no other way? From a young age to an adult. In Dugu's eyes, his father was the most powerful and omnipotent existence, and in the entire vast starry sky, no one had ever been able to do what his father had done. The other 11 dominators of the starry sky were almost killed. If his father hadn't left them some leeway, the 11 rulers of the stars would have been wiped out. Such an existence was omnipotent.
But now?
That was not the case at all. The situation had completely changed. He found it hard to accept this change. Was this still the omnipotent father in his eyes? And all of this was because of one person, an ant at the peak starry sky, immortal realm. But it was this weak ant that made them lose face. He sighed deeply in his heart. There was no way Master God Diviner could do anything about Longao. That was especially true considering how Longao had stood up to the combined attack of the two of them. And yet, he hadn't been killed, nor had he been seriously injured. Is this true? Even now, he still found it hard to believe. Master God Diviner said helplessly, Dugu, I know what you're thinking, but we've trapped Longao here. The best way is for us to do it ourselves. If the other 4 come, they'll have a better chance and less time, but we'll have to share the treasures with them for no reason. Are you willing? Only a fool would be willing. Dugu was not out of his mind. The treasures on Longao's body were all rare treasures. Even the ruler of the starry sky would have great use for them. If he said that he did not want to take them for himself, then he would be lying. But what depressed Dugu the most was that even if they wanted to take Longao's treasures, they would have to at least break the Starry Sky Divine Tool and kill Longao first.
But now?
They couldn't even break the Starry Sky Divine Tool. Everything else was nonsense. Father, we can't keep stalling like this. If Longao leaves now, he didn't continue, but Dugu's meaning was clear. Master God Diviner understood. Master God Diviner seemed to have made a decision. His face suddenly became very serious. He said, this time, we can't make a single mistake. If that's the case, I'll go all out.
Ha!
What does father mean? Dugu was very curious. He didn't know what his father was going to do. Before Dugu could ask, Master God Diviner said, Dugu, if something unexpected happens, you must remember my words. You must protect my chaos tablet. Dugu was completely dumbfounded. He had a bad feeling. He said impatiently, Father, what are you going to do? Longao's Starry Sky Divine Tool is too powerful. Even you and I can't break the Starry Sky Divine Tool. And I don't want the treasures to be divided among others. So, I can only use my Chaos Tablet to see if I can break the Starry Sky Divine Tool.
I see.
Dugu was very curious. Even if his father used his Chaos Tablet, there was no danger at all. But before Dugu could ask, a Chaos Tablet floated in front of Master God Diviner. It was the God Diviner Chaos Tablet. Seeing the black chaos tablet floating in front of Master God Diviner, Long Bation's heart was filled with greed. If he could get the chaos tablet and refine it, then everything would be different. Long Batian wouldn't dare do that even if he was beaten to death. What kind of joke was this? If he dared to steal it, not only would he not be able to get the chaos tablet, but he would also lose his life. Everyone, get out of the way. Yi Dugu and Long Batian didn't know what Master God Diviner was going to do. The two of them retreated, looking very serious. If Master God Diviner couldn't break the Starry Sky Divine Tool, then he would have to summon other Starry Sky rulers. No one wanted to see that happen. As for Long Batian, he hoped to succeed in killing Longao. After this, if Longao didn't die, then he would definitely come back for revenge, letting the tiger go back to the mountain to leave behind future trouble. It seemed that he was overthinking it. Even if Longao hid in the Starry Sky Divine Tool and was safe for the time being, it didn't mean that he could leave smoothly. After all, he had two Starry Sky rulers with him. If Longao could escape, then the three of them could just die. Thinking of this, Long Bation's heart began to relax. His mission was complete. Now it was up to Master God Diviner and Yi Dugu. Chapter 2755. Both of his eyes shone brightly. Longao, I'm going to see just how strong your space god weapon is today. Master Godly Mathematician sighed. He had seen countless space god weapons, and there was no lack of strong ones. However, he had never seen such a strong one. In the next second, the tablet in front of Master Godly Mathematician began to attack the space god weapon wildly. Yi Dugu was shocked. Of course, he knew that no matter how strong Longao's space god weapon was, it could not be stronger than the tablet. Everyone knew. The tablet was the strongest space god weapon in the entire universe. However, it had a fatal weakness. This weakness was actually very simple. Even though they had devoured the tablet, they had not truly grasped the power of chaos within it. If they were to borrow the power of the tablet, who knew if there would be any problems? What if? If the tablet were to be damaged or even leave on its own, there would be no chance for regrets. Other than these 2 points, Yi Dugu was also worried that if he were to borrow the power of the tablet, he would be devoured by the tablet. By then, the consequences would be unimaginable. At this moment, Yi Dugu finally understood his father's intentions. Seemed like his father was going all out in order to kill Longao. Yi Dugu sighed deeply. To be able to force his father to such a state, Longao was the first person. If it was someone of the same level, then so be it. But Longao was just a small pinnacle space immortal, an ant-like existence.
Boom, boom, boom.
How could Master Godly Mathematician not know of the dangers of using the tablet? But since things had already come to this, he could not choose to give up. Nor did he want to seek help from others. Out of desperation, he could only choose to use the tablet. Hopefully, it would be fine. Master Godly Mathematician had already prepared himself. If he could successfully kill Longao and obtain all the treasures in Longao's hands, he would accept any danger. There were gains and losses. Continuous attacks. Crazy attacks. Even if Master Godly Mathematician had not grasped the power of chaos within the tablet, forcefully using the tablet was still not to be underestimated. Within the Chaos Palace, Longao did not even need to go out to know what was going on outside. If it were any other Starry Sky God artifact, it would definitely not be able to withstand the crazy attacks of the Divine Divination Primal Chaos Tablet. However, Longao was extremely confident in his Primal Chaos Palace. Not to mention the Divine Divination Primal Chaos Stone Tablet. Even if the 12 Primal Chaos Stone Tablets attacked together, the Primal Chaos Palace would still have nothing to fear. This was the Primal Chaos Palace. The frenzied attacks lasted for 3 whole minutes. Whether it was the Clairvoyant Master, Yi Dugu, or Long Batian, they all firmly believed that once they used the tablet, they would definitely be able to break through the cosmic artifact. But what was the result? No matter how much strength Master God Diviner exerted, no matter how much the God Diviner attacked with the God Diviner Chaos Tablet, The god diviner space god artifact remained unmoved. What was going on? Looking at what was happening before them, the three of them were completely dumbfounded. If he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, he wouldn't have believed that there was such a powerful starry sky divine artifact in the vast starry sky. It was too terrifying. He didn't continue attacking. The clairvoyant master put away the tablet and shook his head helplessly. He said helplessly, "If I could grasp the power of chaos, then breaking through the cosmic artifact would be as easy as flipping my hand. But now it seems a little impossible." Before Dugu could speak, the clairvoyant master continued, "Dugu, I know what you're thinking, but I can tell you with certainty that even if all the rulers of the starry sky worked together and used the tablet, it would still be useless." Dugu did not doubt this at all. If even his father's tablet could not break through it, then it was obvious how powerful Longao's cosmic artifact was. If that was the case, then even if he summoned the other rulers of the starry sky, it would be useless. What should he do? Should he just give up? He was unwilling, truly unwilling. He sighed helplessly in his heart. He had thought that by luring Longao here, they would be able to sit back and relax. Who would have thought that Longao's cosmic artifact would be so heaven-defying? It was far beyond their expectations. "Father, what should we do now? What should they do?" The clairvoyant master's expression was as ugly as it could be. Now that even the tablet was useless, he didn't know how to deal with Longao. If they wanted to deal with Longao, they had to first break through the cosmic artifact. That sounded simple, but actually doing it was incomparably difficult. It might even be impossible. The Martial Heaven Continent. Yun Lu and Yun Xian were looking at the Martial Heaven Continent. Yun Xian worriedly said, "Father, according to your calculations, Longao is very likely in the Martial Heaven Continent, right?" Yun Lu wasn't very sure about his own calculation, especially when it came to Longao's calculation. He didn't even have a bit of confidence. He couldn't even faintly do it. He could only rely on a little calculation and hope that his calculation was correct. "Qianer, I also don't know what's going on with Longao, but there is a 1 in 10,000 chance that Longao is in the Martial Heaven Continent. But whether he is or not, I can't be sure. Father, let's go in now." Waving his hand, Yun Lu's expression was very grave. He helplessly said, "Qianer, have you forgotten what I said to you before?" Yun Xian's expression changed. She seemed to have guessed what her father was about to say. The family can't become enemies with 6 rulers of the starry sky for one Longao. Even if it's just the clairvoyant master and Dugu, it's still impossible. The family doesn't know that I came with you this time. At this point, Yun Lu did not continue speaking. However, the meaning behind his words was very clear. Yun Xian was not a fool. How could she not understand? Because of this, her expression was particularly ugly. She was very worried. Yun Xian was very clear that she wasn't strong enough to help Longao on her own. Unless her father came forward, there might be a chance. But because of the family, her father wasn't willing to openly help Longao. If that was the case, things would be troublesome. "Father, is there really no ways?" Yun Lu sighed deeply inside. As a father, how could he not know what his daughter was thinking? However, he had his family behind him. As the patriarch of the family, he had to consider everything for the family. How could he choose to sacrifice the family for his daughter? Even if he was willing, the family definitely wouldn't be willing. Chapter 2756. Qianer, if Longao really is on the Martial Heaven Continent, what do you plan to do? Follow him in life and death. Yun Xian's expression was resolute. How could Yun Lu not know his daughter's character? He sighed helplessly inside. "Qianer, although the chances of Longao being on the Martial Heaven Continent are very small, looking at the vast starry sky, I really can't think of any place other than the Martial Heaven Continent that Longao could go." Yun Xian didn't say anything. Yun Lu's words made Yun Xian feel like the clouds had parted to reveal the blue sky. Since she couldn't save Longao, why should she insist on doing this? If she really liked Longao, why not follow him in life and death? If they couldn't be together in life, they had to be together in death. Thinking of that, Yun Xian smiled, her expression relaxed. Looking at Yun Xian's expression, Yun Lu knew what she was thinking. It seemed that he had painted legs on a snake. Now that things had come to this, it was too late to regret. Xianer, come with me. Although Yun Xian didn't know what her father wanted to do, she still followed. Within the martial heaven continent, the god diviner and Yi Dugu were thinking of a way to deal with Longao and the starry sky divine item when their expressions suddenly changed. The two of them sensed Yun Lu's aura. They were very curious. They didn't know why Yun Lu had suddenly come.
Was it because of Longao?
Father, if Yun Lu interferes, what should we do? This was what Yi Dugu was most worried about. Yun Lu's group of 3 were rulers of the starry sky, and the peak mysterious race was too mysterious. Who knew if there were other rulers of the starry sky overseeing this race? His expression turned cold. Clenching his fists, the god diviner coldly said, if it was anything else, it would be fine. But if it's for Longao, they won't hesitate to fall out with him. That was what Yi Dugu wanted to hear. Dugu, you stay here.
I'll be right back.
Yes, father. A second later, the god diviner's figure vanished without a trace. Outer Sea, inside the Crystal Palace. The god diviner and Yun Lu arrived at almost the same time. Looking at the two of them, the god diviner smiled. Yun Lu, why have you come to the martial heaven continent for no reason? Whether they were friend or foe was still unknown. However, the two of them were absolutely unwilling to shed all pretenses of cordiality at this time because they knew very well that it wouldn't benefit either of them to make a move at this time. Yun Lu didn't mind. He also smiled. Master God Diviner, I came to ask you if Longao is on the martial heaven continent. Yes. The God Diviner didn't hide anything. He knew that since Yun Lu had come, he had to be completely confident that Longao was on the martial heaven continent. Since that was the case, there was no need for him to hide anything. In truth, the god diviner didn't know that. Yun Lu didn't dare to be sure. He was just casually asking. If the god diviner said she wasn't here, he would take Yun Xian and leave the martial heaven continent. If the god diviner learned of this, it was unknown whether or not he would regret it. As for Yun Lu, he was a bit dumbfounded. He hadn't expected Longao to really be on the martial heaven continent. Furthermore, the god diviner had admitted to it so readily. He was caught unprepared. However, Yun Lu still hoped that the god diviner would deny it. That way, he could continue searching with Yun Xian. Yun Xian's eyes suddenly shot out 2 cold lights. Her body was filled with a murderous aura. It was as if she could topple mountains and overturn seas. She didn't care at all. Yun Xian's cultivation base had gone from the Starry Sky Immortal Realm to the peak of the Starry Sky Immortal Realm. She was just 1 step away from becoming a half-step ruler. However, Yun Lu didn't let Yun Xian devour the secret realm. According to him, she should directly refine the Primal Chaos Tablet and become a ruler. To the god diviner, a mere peak Starry Sky Immortal wasn't a threat to him. If anyone else dared to do such a thing, the god diviner would have already attacked. The reason he was being lenient with Yun Xian was purely because of her father's face. It was still the same thing. Unless it was absolutely necessary, the god diviner wouldn't shed all pretenses. Doing so wouldn't benefit him in the slightest. Enough. How could Yun Lu not know that the god diviner was being lenient? If the god diviner wanted to, he could easily destroy Qian-Er. Qian-Er didn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Yun Lu really felt helpless when it came to his daughter. He really didn't know what to do. Hand over Longao, Master God Diviner. Yun Xian ignored her father and glared at the God Diviner in front of her. Her killing intent didn't disappear. Instead, it grew stronger and stronger. If it weren't for the fact that she wasn't strong enough to kill a Starry Sky Immortal, Yun Xian would have already attacked. I want to ask, is this your decision alone, or does it include Yun Lu, or the entire Peak Mysterious race? Although the God Diviner was wary of Yun Lu, he wasn't afraid. Even if the Peak Massacre race had more Starry Sky Immortals than them, 1 more Starry Sky Immortal wouldn't be enough before they mastered the power of Primal Chaos. In order to successfully kill Longao, the god diviner wouldn't hesitate to fall out with Yunlu. Before leaving the cave, the god diviner had already made preparations, so he wasn't afraid at all. How could Yunlu not know what the god diviner was thinking? The more it was like this, the more he didn't want to act rashly. It wasn't that he was afraid of the god diviner, but that he didn't want to implicate his family. If his family provoked two starry sky immortals because of him and his daughter, it would be a shame to the family. If he hadn't been injured, then with his strength, provoking the god diviner wouldn't have been a big problem. But now, the situation was obviously different. God diviner, I know about the grudge between you and Longao, but as a starry sky immortal, aren't you afraid of being ridiculed by others for treating a junior like this? Ridiculed? Of course, the god diviner was afraid. As a starry sky immortal, face was more important than anything else. However, when it came to Longao, the god diviner didn't care about his face at all. As long as he could kill Longao smoothly, it would be worth it even if he lost a lot of face. Seeing the god diviner remain silent, Yunlu could already guess what the god diviner was thinking. He was surprised. It seemed that the grudge between Longao and the god diviner was more complicated than he had imagined. Otherwise, the god diviner wouldn't have disregarded his face and even fallen out with him for the sake of a Longao. Chapter 2757. Give up? If he chose to give up, he could imagine what Qian would do. He only had one daughter. How could he give up on her? It was absolutely impossible. On one side was his family, and on the other was his daughter. He couldn't give up on either. It was really hard to choose. Divine Mathematician didn't urge him. After all, he didn't want to be enemies with Yunlu. His priority was to deal with Longao. As long as he could kill Longao and get all the treasures in Longao's hands, including the space god artifact, he wouldn't be afraid of falling out with Yunlu. Everyone had their own ulterior motives. Yunlu could wait, but Yun Qian couldn't. Who knew what Longao's current situation was? What if something happened to Longao? She couldn't imagine it. Thinking of this, Yun Qian snorted coldly and disappeared. She slammed her palms towards Divine Mathematician. If it were anyone else, apart from Longao, they would be scared to death by the starry sky ruler. How could they take the initiative to attack? Yun Qian couldn't care less. Seeing Qian take the initiative to attack, Yunlu was completely dumbfounded. He didn't know what was wrong with his silly daughter. Things weren't clear yet. If she acted rashly, she might leave something for Divine Mathematician to talk about. Divine Mathematician didn't attack. Yunlu released a terrifying aura that enveloped Qian. Even if Yun Qian's cultivation had smoothly broken through to the starry sky immortal realm, she couldn't compete with the starry sky ruler. The gap between the two was too big. They weren't on the same level. Divine Mathematician had already predicted that Yunlu would attack. He smiled and said, Yunlu, I'm giving you face. If it were anyone else, they would be dead by now. Divine Mathematician definitely wasn't bragging. After all, he had the strength. How could Yunlu not know? Thinking about it, he felt a little scared. Fortunately, he followed. If Qian came alone, the consequences would be unimaginable. My daughter was reckless. Yunlu, I know why you came this time, but I can tell you clearly that the grudge between Longao and I will not end until one of us dies. No one can interfere. The clairvoyant master's attitude was very clear. It didn't matter who came. Yunlu had already guessed that this would be the result. Otherwise, how could the master god diviner, as the master of the starry sky, lower himself to deal with Longao? It was nonsense to begin with. For Longao to be able to live until now was also a miracle in itself. Fate had already been decided, and it was not something that could be decided by human strength. How should he choose? Even if he was willing to offend two rulers of the starry sky for a mere Longao, his family definitely wouldn't. Actually, in Yunlu's heart, he was also unwilling to play around. Clairvoyant. He waved his hand. Master God Diviner didn't seem to want to say anything more. He coldly said, "I won't see you out." An eviction order. Yunlu saw that Master God Diviner had directly ordered him to leave, but there was nothing he could do. Unless he shed all pretense of cordiality and started a fight, he couldn't stay here forever. "Father, let's go." Seeing that her father was really about to leave, Yun Qian was completely anxious. Without her father's help, she wouldn't be able to help Longao deal with the Master God Diviner and Yi Dugu on her own. Seeing the two of them leave, the Master God Diviner sneered. In the next second, he vanished without a trace. Outside the Martial Heaven continent, Yun Qian's expression was very cold. She really couldn't understand. Her father had already entered the Martial Heaven continent. Even if he didn't want to fall out with the Master God Diviner, he should have at least helped her save Longao. She hadn't expected that her father would choose to compromise. Longao was now trapped in the Martial Heaven continent. His fate was unknown. "Qianer, I know what you're thinking, but I can tell you that with my current strength, I can't fight 1 against 2. Once I use the power of the 2 elders, the family will definitely know. At that time, Longao won't even have the slightest hope." The furious Yun Qian was startled by her father's explanation. What did her father mean? "Father, Qianer, you're my only daughter. I don't want anything to happen to you. I can only use my own power to help you, and it has to be done in secret. We can't let the family know about this, or all our efforts will be for naught." Yun Qian was delighted. She impatiently asked, "Father, what should we do now?" Yunlu's complexion was also very solemn. He helplessly said, "You have heard it just now. Divine Mathematician's attitude is very clear. He won't rest until he is dead. It seems that Divine Mathematician won't rest until he kills Longao." How could Yun Qian not know about this? She didn't care about the enmity between Longao and the Master God Diviner. She also didn't care about the Master God Diviner's attitude. As long as Longao was fine, she didn't care about anything else.
"Come with me."
Although she didn't know what her father wanted to do, Yun Qian trusted him greatly. The Martial Heaven continent, within a cave. Seeing that his father had taken so long to return, Yi Dugu asked, "Father, is Yun Lu here for Longao?" In fact, Yi Dugu had already guessed it. Otherwise, why would Yun Lu not come earlier or later, but at this time? Besides the matter of Longao, he really couldn't think of a second possibility. Nodding, the Master God Diviner coldly said, "Yun Lu seems to have some misgivings. That's why he didn't shed all pretense of cordiality with me. However, Yun Qian and Longao are a bit unusual. To prevent any unexpected events, we have to quickly think of a way to deal with Longao." So that's what it was. Yi Dugu was infuriated. He couldn't figure out how Longao had gotten so lucky. Not only did he have the help of Xiling and Longchong, 2 rulers of the starry sky, but now he had Yunlu and the others. If his father hadn't been strong enough, things wouldn't have been so simple. The more he thought about it, the angrier he became. The more furious he became, the more he couldn't control himself. He continued to attack the spatial divine item. However, no matter how hard he tried, no matter how crazily he attacked, the palace didn't budge in the slightest. Yi Dugu's anger rose, but he was powerless to do anything. "Long Batian, do you have a way to deal with Longao?" Long Batian, who had been watching a good show, suddenly heard the Master God Diviner ask him this question. His heart skipped a beat. He didn't know what the Master God Diviner meant, but he still shook his head helplessly. "If even the 2 of you can't break through the spatial divine item, it's even more impossible for me." Long Batian's meaning was clear. He didn't have a way. The Master God Diviner continued, "If there's a way to break through this spatial divine item, would you be willing to help?" Chapter 2758. You want my help? What does Master Godly Mathematician mean? Long Batian had a bad premonition, but he didn't dare to say anything. "Sir, please tell me. As long as I can do it, I won't refuse." "Very good." Master Godly Mathematician put on a fake smile. "You and Longao are of the same race. I thought about it and decided that your bloodline is the most suitable way to deal with him. Bloodline? What does that mean? Long Batian was confused. He didn't know what Master Godly Mathematician meant, but he wasn't a fool. He could guess that if Master Godly Mathematician used his bloodline, he would lose his life. How could he refuse? It was obvious. Long Batian sighed in his heart. No matter how angry he was, since Master Godly Mathematician had asked, he couldn't refuse. There was only one consequence for refusing: immediate death. Sir, what should I do? Master Godly Mathematician's method was simple. He wanted to use Long Batian's bloodline to see if it could deal with Longao. If Longao died, the cosmic space divine artifact would automatically open. Longao was the key. Master Godly Mathematician and Yi Dugu immediately began. In a few minutes, Long Batian was lying on the ground. If they hadn't felt that Long Batian was still useful, he would have died. He glared at the two in front of him. If he wasn't so weak, he wouldn't have to wait for death. A half-step ruler of stars was just a slightly stronger ant in front of a ruler of stars. Just as Master Godly Mathematician and Yi Dugu were about to use Long Batian's bloodline to deal with Longao, suddenly, the situation changed. A black suddenly appeared in front of them. It was so fast that the two rulers of stars didn't even have time to react. Longao, it's you. The person who had just appeared was none other than Longao, who had been hiding in the Primal Chaos Palace. Although he knew that Long Batian had no other choice, he had almost died because of Long Batian. If he didn't settle the score, how could he face himself? Just because he couldn't kill the Oracle and Yi Dugu didn't mean that he couldn't kill Long Batian. If Long Batian had been at his peak, it would have been very troublesome to kill him. However, the situation was different now. Since the two of them had used Long Batian's bloodline, it would be difficult for him to recover in a short time. This was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. As soon as he left the Primal Chaos Palace, Longao teleported in front of Long Batian. His face was extremely gloomy. Longao said coldly as he looked at Long Batian. You asked for it. Longao, you can't kill me. You can't kill me. I'm your ancestor, Oz. The two people, who were preparing to attack the Starry Sky Spirit artifact, suddenly turned around and looked at Longao. Not only did the two not show any anger, but they even looked pleasantly surprised. He was afraid that Longao would not appear. As for Long Batian's life, they didn't care at all. If they could create a half-step Starry Sky ruler, then they could create a second half-step Starry Sky ruler, or even a third. Longao didn't care about Long Batian. With a palm strike, Long Batian's soul was scattered. If it had been anyone else, it would have been impossible to completely destroy Long Batian. Only Longao could do what others couldn't, but Longao easily did. Longao didn't feel the slightest bit of excitement after killing Long Batian. No matter what, Long Batian was his ancestor. If it weren't for this, he wouldn't have killed him. After Long Batian died, the secret realm in his body automatically left. If it had been another half-step Starry Sky ruler's secret realm, Longao wouldn't have been polite. However, Longao didn't intend to take Long Batian's secret realm for his own use.
Destroy.
However, even Master Godly Mathematician and Yi Dugu couldn't destroy a secret realm, let alone him. Only a Starry Sky ruler who had mastered the power of primal chaos could do it. However, whether they could do it was still unknown. Longao was full of confidence. Using his finger as a sword, he gently swiped at the space in front of him. Master Godly Mathematician and Yi Dugu were startled. Although Longao was only a peak Starry Sky immortal, his ability to shatter the Starry Sky was something they were very wary of. Spatial cracks were the most powerful force in the vast Starry Sky. If they were forcefully devoured, the consequences would be unimaginable. However, the two of them were overthinking. Looking at the spatial crack that appeared in front of him, Longao threw the secret realm in his hand into it. Seeing the situation in front of them, Master Godly Mathematician and Yi Dugu could already guess what Longao was thinking. Yi Dugu snorted and said, "Longao, I thought you would hide in the Starry Sky God tool and not come out. How about it? Do you think it's good to be a coward?" Without the slightest anger, Longao sneered and said, Yi Dugu, if you had the ability, I wouldn't be standing here. Yi Dugu was still able to maintain his composure. As soon as Longao finished speaking, Yi Dugu was thoroughly enraged. Ever since he became a starry sky ruler, he thought that he was the true ruler of the vast starry sky. Unless he faced other starry sky rulers, no one could stop him. Moreover, he had his father by his side. But the result? In the face of a strange variable like Longao, he couldn't do anything. No matter what method he used, he couldn't kill Longao smoothly. It would be a lie to say that he wasn't anxious, angry, and unwilling. Forcefully suppressing the anger in his heart, Yi Dugu did not act rashly, because he knew very well that Longao had finally left the starry sky space artifact. If this time he still could not make a sure hit, and Longao hid in the starry sky space artifact again, then who knew when he would be able to deal with Longao? As for whether using Longao's bloodline would be enough to deal with Longao, it was still unknown. If it failed, this opportunity would be even more important. No matter what, he couldn't miss this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. How could Longao not know what Yi Dugu and Master God Diviner were thinking? He sneered and said, Yi Dugu, Master God Diviner, how about we make a bet? Bet? Longao actually wanted to make a bet with the two of them at this time? Was there something wrong with his head? Seeing that the two of them weren't speaking, Longao didn't mind. He continued, It's very simple. As long as you can break my spatial divine item, I'll surrender. If you can't, I'll stay in the martial heaven continent for 3 months, and you can't do anything to me. How about it? Hearing Longao's words, both Yi Dugu and the God Diviner laughed. Chapter 2759. There was no point in making this bet at all. After all, in the eyes of the two of them, whether they were betting or not, Longao would be dead for sure as long as they managed to break through the space cosmos legendary weapon. Since that was the case, what was the point of this bet? It was complete nonsense. A single look at the two of them and Lin Fan knew what they were thinking. Longao chuckled out. Longao, to think that you can still laugh in the face of death. I'm really impressed. The words of the godly mathematician were not fake in the least bit. After all, Longao was probably the only person who could be so calm in the face of two rulers of the starry skies. If not for the fact that he had divined the variables of Longao, the moment this man was subdued by him, he did not continue thinking about it. After all, there were no ifs in this world. Godly mathematician Yi Dugu, it's not that I, Longao, am looking down on you guys. But even if all the rulers of the starry skies were to gather here, they would not be able to break through my space cosmos legendary weapon, let alone the two of you. Would you believe me? Brazen. If this were in the past, the two of them would definitely scoff at Longao's words. But now, the situation was completely different. The two of them had witnessed with their own eyes just how formidable this space cosmos legendary weapon in Longao's hands was. This was something that they could not do anything about. All this while, they had thought that as long as they could lock onto the location of the space cosmos legendary weapon, breaking through it would be something that could be done in a matter of minutes. But the outcome? So, what if they could lock onto it? If they could not break through it, they might as well not lock onto it. It could be said that he was extremely depressed. Looking at how the two of them were not speaking and the killing intent that was rolling out from them, Longao was not bothered at all. The two of you, do you think that I, Longao, have left the space cosmos legendary weapon naturally and cannot enter from such a distance? The two of them still did not speak, but that was what they meant. If Longao were to enter the space cosmos legendary weapon right under their noses, they would truly be humiliated. Ha ha ha. Ha 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 ha. Ha 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 ha. Followed by a burst of laughter. In the next second, Longao's figure suddenly disappeared. If the Chaos Palace was in Longao's body, it would be difficult to enter. After all, the cave had been forcefully sealed. Unless Longao's cultivation improved, it would be difficult to enter.
But now,
the primal Chaos Palace wasn't inside Longao's body. It was inside the cave. If that was the case, Longao could enter whenever he wanted. Even if there was a seal, it couldn't do anything to Longao. If it wasn't for his confidence, Longao wouldn't have appeared so casually. After all, the slightest carelessness in doing so would cause one to fall into eternal damnation. Although they had already expected this, when they saw the scene before them, the two of them still sighed deeply. Is this true? Is this true? Is this true? Both of them kept asking themselves. Even if they saw it with their own eyes, they still found it hard to believe that a mere peak starry sky immortal could achieve such a feat, father. Waving his hand, the godly mathematician seemed as though he had been dealt a huge blow. He said helplessly, "If we don't get rid of this man, he will definitely become a huge thorn in our side in the future." The godly mathematician's intention was clear. He wanted to continue killing without mercy. Although it sounded simple, it was extremely difficult to carry out. For a moment or so, the two of them could not think of a better way to deal with Longao. They could only continue guarding the cave. Long Batian was pretty depressed right now. Even if he had fallen, he would not have expected such an outcome. He had thought that, with two rulers of the starry sky backing him up, even if Longao's strength was heavenly, he could forget about killing him. In fact, he might not even be able to protect himself. But in the end, he was killed by Longao right under the noses of two rulers of the starry sky. He didn't even have the chance to enter the cycle of reincarnation. If Long Batian had to choose again, who knew what he would choose? Within the Chaos Palace, with the protection of the Chaos Palace, Longao was not worried at all. However, this was not the way to go. Time was too important for him. Sitting quietly within the primal Chaos Palace, Lin Fan thought of all sorts of methods in his mind. He wanted to see what method he could use to get out of this cave. Until now, Longao did not have the slightest regret. Long Batian had betrayed him. What if he hadn't? Thinking of Long Batian, Longao sighed deeply. It was all because of the godly mathematician and Yi Dugu. What should he do? According to the current situation, if he wanted to leave this place smoothly, or if he had the chance to leave, there was only one way, and that was to find a way to break the imprisonment of the cave. Otherwise, he would be imprisoned here forever, unable to move an inch. At this moment, the godly mathematician, who had been guarding outside, suddenly said coldly, "Who is so daring to attack the sky martial plane?" Yi Dugu also sensed it. Both of them were very curious. According to their strength, once they joined hands, no one would dare to fight them head-on unless it was Yun Lu and the others. Who was so daring to attack the sky martial plane? Father, could it be Yun Lu? Yi Dugu could not think of anyone else apart from Yun Lu. However, the godly mathematician shook his head and said, "It's not possible. I have seen Yun Lu before. If he wanted to have a falling out with us, Yun Lu would not do this. It's not possible for Xiling and Long Chong. They are still sealed in the soaring dragon plane. It's impossible for them to come out. If the two of them broke out of the seal, they would definitely be able to sense it. Because of this, they ruled out Xiling and Long Chong. If it wasn't the three of them, then who could it be? No matter how they thought about it, they did not know who it was. Dugu, go and take a look."
Yes.
Yi Dugu turned and left. In an instant, he disappeared without a trace. Outside the sky martial continent. When Yi Dugu arrived, he didn't find a single person. Because the heaven martial plane was extremely hidden, nobody knew about it. Moreover, only a few people knew about it, so no matter how he thought about it, he couldn't think of a reason.
Who are you?
Since you dare to come, why don't you dare to show yourself? No one answered. Yi Dugu's expression was very ugly. He already knew that this person had come deliberately to cause trouble. His goal was obvious. He must have come to help Long Chong. Looking at the vast starry sky, other than Xiling and Long Chong, the two rulers of the starry sky, who would dare to risk offending them to help Long Chong, Yi Dugu could not figure out who it was. Because of this, Yi Dugu was furious. You really are a coward. Since that's the case, please leave quickly. Chapter 2760. There was still no answer. Yi Dugu was infuriated, But there was nothing he could do. Just as Yi Dugu returned to the cave, another fierce attack came from outside. This time, it was even crazier than the previous one. Father, this person clearly wants to oppose us. What should we do? The god diviner's expression was grave. Even now, he couldn't figure out who it was that wanted to oppose the two of them. It was still the same sentence. Looking at the entire starry sky, there were very few people who dared to oppose them. This person was clearly a ruler of the starry sky, but he didn't dare to show himself. That in itself showed that this person was alone. He wasn't a match for the two of them. If it were any other plane, it would have been destroyed. But the martial heaven continent was different. Because of the primal chaos spring, the god diviner had been guarding this place for countless years. How could he give up so easily? You stay here. I'll go take a look. The god diviner arrived outside the martial heaven continent. The attacks had already disappeared. He was furious.
Who are you?
Since you're here, why don't you show yourself? If there's any misunderstanding between us, there's no harm in clearing it up. The god diviner wasn't afraid of a direct confrontation. This was what he was worried about. The other side wouldn't fight him head-on. Instead, they would stab him in the back. It was impossible to guard against. If it had been any other time, it would have been one thing, but now was the time. If the other side really did this, and he and Dugu were careless, Longao would escape, and they wouldn't even have a chance to regret it. The more he thought about it, the angrier he became. Seeing that no one answered, the god diviner sneered. You're a grand ruler of the starry sky, but you're willing to be a coward. In the vast starry sky, every ruler of the starry sky stood at the peak. According to the god diviner's guess, as long as this person was still present, he would definitely appear. But the result? The god diviner had clearly miscalculated. He had never imagined that this person, a ruler of the starry sky, would be so calm. This was going to be troublesome. In the distance, Father, is the god diviner and Yi Dugu really unable to lock onto us? Although Yun Xian trusted her father's strength, the god diviner and Yi Dugu were still rulers of the starry sky. They couldn't be careless. Otherwise, if they brought trouble to the family, they would lose even their last hope. Yun Lu nodded confidently. Although I was seriously injured back then, and my strength was greatly reduced as long as I didn't get too close, even the oracle and Yi Dugu wouldn't be able to lock onto my position. Yun Xian's face was filled with worry. Whether or not this method could help Longao was still unknown. Qian, you don't believe me? Father. Seeing Qian hesitating to speak, Yun Lu had already guessed what Qian was thinking. He sighed deeply in his heart. He really couldn't figure out what was so outstanding about Longao that his daughter was so infatuated with him that she didn't even care about her own life. There was really no other way. It was still the same sentence. He only had one daughter. No matter what happened, he couldn't let anything happen to Qian. As the saying goes, love the house and its crow. Even if he was 10,000 times unwilling to help Longao, he could only reluctantly do it for the sake of his daughter. Qian, I know that you're very worried about Longao, but if we just barge in like this, not only will we not be able to help Longao, it will even backfire. The best way now is for me to lure the two out and let Longao escape by himself. Could it really work? Yun Xian didn't have the slightest confidence. However, Yun Xian also knew very well that this was all her father could do. After all, there was the whole family behind him. If the family knew about this, even if her father was the patriarch, he wouldn't be able to continue to help Longao. At that time, it would really backfire. Qian, for Longao to reach his current level, he should have some ability. I've already done all I can. Whether or not he can escape this calamity will be up to him. Yun Xian didn't say anything more. She had already thought about it. If there really was no other way, she would risk entering the martial heaven continent. Even if she died, she would die with Longao. Looking at Qian's expression, Yun Lu knew what she was thinking. He didn't try to persuade her. He understood her character. Once she decided on something, she wouldn't change her mind. The god diviner's expression grew darker and uglier. If this person continued to hide like this, it would truly be troublesome. However, The god diviner naturally knew this person's goal. The more this person wanted to hide, the more he couldn't leave the martial heaven continent. That was especially true of the cave. There had to be someone guarding it. Otherwise, given how strange Longao was, he would probably leave. They waited for several hours. The god diviner didn't want to keep waiting. He had only just returned to the cave when the attack came. The god diviner and Yi Dugu were infuriated. This person's goal was clear. If they both left, they would really have been fooled. Father, what should we do now? Let's wait and see. Although the Tianwu plane can be destroyed, that person can't go too far with just the two of us. Furthermore, according to my calculations, the Tianwu continent has the primal chaos spring protecting it. It's probably indestructible. Even so, Yi Dugu was still depressed. This matter would quickly spread throughout the starry sky. At that time, everyone would think that he and his father were cowards who didn't dare to face this person head-on. If it had been in the past, Yi Dugu would have been able to endure it. But after refining the primal chaos tablet and becoming the ruler of the starry sky, his mental state had changed. This kind of shameful thing was something he couldn't do about Longao, but no one else could. How could the god diviner not know what Yi Dugu was thinking? One Longao was enough. He didn't want to repeat the same mistake. After all, they were rulers of the starry sky, the peak existences of the starry sky. So, what if their opponent was a ruler of the starry sky? As long as they didn't control primal chaos energy, they had nothing to worry about. Dugu, this person seems to know what's going on here. That's why he's luring us out. If we really leave as he wishes, I'm afraid Longao will leave. They couldn't advance and they couldn't retreat. Even the god diviner didn't know what to do. What should they do? They clearly knew this person's goal, but they couldn't think of a good solution. Seeing his father's grave expression, Yi Dugu didn't know what to do. He wanted to say something, but in the end, he swallowed his words. The cave was silent for a moment. Chapter 2761. Outside the Sky Martial Continent. As the attacks became more and more fierce, Yunlu also began to be shocked. According to his strength, it should not be difficult to destroy the Sky Martial Continent. But the result? He had been attacking for dozens of minutes, but the Sky Martial Continent was still as stable as Mount Tai. If he did not see it with his own eyes, it would be hard to believe. As for the divine mathematician and Yi Dugu, Yunlu had already guessed that the two of them must have known his thoughts and did not dare to casually leave the Sky Martial Continent, afraid of being lured away. He sneered. If the two of you don't come out, I will continue to attack the Sky Martial Continent. I don't want to rely on my own strength to not be able to cause any damage to the Sky Martial Continent. In the distance, Yun Qian looked at her father crazily attacking the Sky Martial Continent and was extremely nervous. Yun Lu could get close to the Sky Martial Continent and attack, but Yun Qian could not. Although Yun Qian's cultivation had successfully broken through the limit of the Starry Sky Immortal Realm, once she got close to the Sky Martial Continent, she would definitely be discovered by the two. It was still the same sentence. At this time, Yun Lu did not want to completely fall out with the two of them, nor did he want to implicate the family. He clenched his fists tightly. Longao, you must hold on. Yun Qian did not know anything about what was happening in the Sky Martial Continent. She only knew one thing, and that was the enmity between Longao and the divine mathematician. It was definitely not a good thing. Time was of the essence. Time was too important for him, because the longer he delayed, the more disadvantageous it was for Longao. In the cave, the divine mathematician and Yi Dugu were indeed able to endure. Regardless of the crazy attacks outside, the two of them did not move at all, guarding the cave. The other party was attacking the Sky Martial Continent so crazily, it was nothing more than luring them out, a so-called diversion. The more it was like this, the more they had to remain calm and not be fooled. Father, if this crazy attack continues, will the plane be damaged? Yi Dugu did not know much about the Sky Martial plane. After all, he had not been a starry sky ruler for long. Yi Dugu smiled confidently. Dugu, I just said that this plane is protected by the primal chaos spring. Even the starry sky ruler cannot destroy this plane. Seeing his father so confident, Yidogu had nothing to worry about. However, if this continued, it would be a little embarrassing. However, in order to better deal with Longao, he couldn't care less about losing face. It was still the same sentence. If it was a head-on clash, the two of them would not have the slightest fear. What he was afraid of was that the other party did not dare to show himself. If that was the case, he would be at a loss. He couldn't have it both ways. He could only choose one. On one hand, it was their face, and on the other hand, it was Longao. After choosing, the two of them would still choose Longao without hesitation. His face couldn't be compared to Longao's at all. Even though the two of them did not appear, the attacks were still relentless. Within the primal chaos palace, Longao could clearly sense that the martial heaven continent was being crazily attacked. He was very curious as to who would come to attack it at this time. It was simply inconceivable. Longao wasn't sure how many people in the starry sky would dare to oppose Master God Diviner and Master God Diviner. Could it be because of him? To dare attack the people of the martial heaven continent like this, it had to be the ruler of the starry sky. But which ruler had come to help him? Other than Xiling and Longchong, there was probably no other ruler of the starry sky that would be willing to help him and offend Master God Diviner and Master God Diviner. Just who could it be? Longao's intuition told him that the person who had come to help him was very likely Yunlu. If it was just Yunlu, he definitely wouldn't help him. Even if Yunlu didn't do it for him, he would definitely do it for the peak mysterious race behind him. That was without a doubt. However, with Yun Qian in the middle, things were different. She was the girl who had fallen in love with him at first sight, the girl who had always helped him. Longao felt a bit guilty. He didn't dwell on this matter. No matter what he did in the future, the first thing he had to do was think of a way to leave this place. Just what should he do? No matter how he thought about it, Longao couldn't think of a way. The restrictions of this cave were too tyrannical. Even the primal chaos palace couldn't resist it. If he could truly control the primal chaos palace, then it would be a completely different concept. If he wanted to leave this cave, he had to first break the restrictions. However, breaking the restrictions wasn't easy. He had to go all out. Thinking of that, Longao didn't hesitate.
Time was too important to him.
He couldn't waste the slightest bit of it. Within the cave, seeing Longao suddenly appear in the palace, both Master God Diviner and Master God Diviner were delighted. Although they didn't know what Longao was thinking, they wouldn't let go of any opportunity. As soon as Longao appeared, they attacked. Regardless of anything, Longao immediately began to hack around with a primal chaos axe in his hand. His speed was very fast. In 1/10 of a second, he had already hacked out hundreds of times. What kind of concept was this? Even if Master God Diviner and Master God Diviner were powerful, they didn't dare to fight head-on. After all, the space crack could even swallow them. If they were accidentally swallowed, then they wouldn't even have the chance to regret it. How could Master God Diviner and Master God Diviner not understand Longao's intention? However, they were full of confidence. Not to mention Longao, even the starry sky ruler might not be able to break the restrictions of this cave. If Longao wanted to break the restrictions and leave this cave, it would be a fool's dream. It was almost impossible. The two didn't continue to attack. Instead, they kept a distance and watched Longao madly attack. Longao, use a little more strength. How can you break the restrictions with your little strength? The two's faces were full of ridicule. In their opinion, Longao's strength was not worth mentioning except for his powerful spirit techniques and space-time divine tool. Not to mention them, even a half-step starry sky ruler wouldn't be able to compete with him. This was Longao's strength. Because of this, the two didn't feel anxious. They just stared at Longao in front of them and watched Longao madly attack the restrictions around him. Longao was very anxious, because even if the two didn't attack him, it didn't mean that he was safe.
Time was too important for him.
The longer he delayed, the more disadvantageous it would be for him. He had to break the restrictions around him in the shortest time possible. However, the more anxious he was, the more difficult it seemed to be. Until now, Longao still couldn't figure out what the restrictions around him were. Why couldn't he break the restrictions with his strength? Chapter 2762. Longao had full confidence in his attacks. Even with such a crazy attack, he still hadn't been able to break the shackles. Just thinking about it made him feel helpless. If he couldn't break the shackles, he couldn't leave. Was he going to keep wasting time like this? As for his own safety, Longao wasn't worried in the slightest. With the protection of the primal chaos palace, even Master Godly Mathematician and Yidugu couldn't break through it. But this wasn't the way to go. Time was of the essence. What should he do? Longao, why aren't you attacking? Yidugu's face was full of disdain as he mocked. He and Master Godly Mathematician had already guessed that this would be the result. If Longao really could break through the shackles, that would be a miracle. Longao's face was incomparably calm. Looking at the two people in front of him, Longao suddenly laughed. What are you laughing at? As dignified rulers of a starry sky, the two of you have spent so much effort to deal with me. I really admire you. How could the two not understand the meaning behind Longao's words? Their faces instantly darkened. They didn't care. With a cold laugh, Longao continued, the two of you, do you want to know where the 12 chaos tablets from the primal chaos plane went? The two of them didn't speak. They didn't know why, but when they heard Longao's words, they had a bad premonition in their hearts. What did Longao mean by that? Ha, 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 12 primal chaos stone tablets. If I succeed in refining them at that time, Longao did not continue speaking. However, if the 12 primal chaos stone tablets were successfully refined, even if one used ones but to think, one could imagine the consequences. Yidugu and Master Godly Mathematician's faces were as gloomy as they could get, because the two of them felt uneasy. Whether or not Longao's words were true, they'd rather believe it than not. If it were anyone else, the two of them definitely wouldn't believe it. But if it were Longao, then it might not be so. If Longao really did obtain the 12 chaos tablets, then once he refined them, that would mean that the Soaring Dragon Empire would have 12 rulers of the starry sky. What kind of concept was that? What did this mean? It was unimaginable. Their faces became increasingly gloomy. Was what Longao said true or false? How could Longao not know what the two of them were thinking? He smiled. He smiled again. Do the two of you not believe me? Yidugu smiled and asked, do you think I will believe you? In the next second, the attributeless primal chaos stone tablet within Longao's body suddenly floated out. It quietly floated in front of Longao. Others might not have recognized the chaos stone tablets, but Master God Diviner and Yidugu, who had become rulers of the universe, could recognize that the black rock floating in front of Longao was the so-called chaos stone tablet. As for what attribute this primal chaos stone tablet had, that was unknown. Their faces grew uglier and uglier. Master God Diviner and Yidugu had guessed that Longao might have already swallowed the chaos stone tablet. Guesses were just guesses. The two of them naturally hoped that Longao hadn't swallowed the chaos stone tablet. That way, no matter how talented Longao was, he would never be able to accomplish anything. But now, the situation was clearly different. Longao had swallowed the chaos stone tablet. Once he succeeded in refining it, that meant that he would become a ruler of the universe. Add to that Longao's various divine abilities and spatial divine artifacts, and by that time, no one in the universe would be able to suppress Longao. If that really happened, things would be very troublesome. The two of them knew very well that swallowing and refining were two completely different concepts. Swallowing the Chaos Stone tablet didn't mean that one would be able to refine it, and there was no limit to how long one could refine it. But facing Longao, the two of them expressed their helplessness. Who knew when Longao would be able to refine the Chaos Stone tablet and become a ruler of the universe? This sort of thing could have never happened. They could only blame themselves for being too careless, allowing Longao to take advantage of them. The more they thought about it, the more they regretted it. But regret was useless. Longao, so what if you have the 12 Chaos Stone tablets? If you die, if the Soaring Dragon Empire is destroyed, then the 12 Chaos Stone tablets will all belong to me. What do you think? If that was the case, then Longao would only be making a wedding dress for someone else. The god diviner and Yi Dugu naturally wouldn't give up so easily. This was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. If they let it go so easily, even they would despise themselves. The two of them naturally thought that if they could kill Longao, not only would they be able to solve their worries, but they would also be able to obtain the 12 Chaos Stone tablets. At that time, they would be able to create their own army of rulers of the universe. If that was the case, they would be the sole ruler of the universe. Who would dare to provoke the martial heaven plane? How could Longao not know what the two of them were thinking? He sneered inwardly. The two of them really dared to dream. They couldn't even break through his primal chaos hall, yet they wanted to kill him. They really didn't know shame. Shameless to the extreme. Longao, said the god diviner impatiently. Longao was very impatient. He didn't wait for the godly mathematician to speak. He said, "Just the two of you can't kill me. If you could, I wouldn't be standing here and listening to your boasting." They clearly knew that Longao was doing this on purpose, but they were still furious. As dignified rulers of the universe, and the two of them joined hands, they couldn't even deal with one Longao. This was simply a great humiliation. Yi Dugu snorted coldly and said mockingly, "Longao, if we had fought fair and square, you would have died long ago. However, you are willing to be a coward and hide in a space artifact." He didn't continue. Yi Dugu naturally wanted to smoothly kill Longao, but if Longao hid in a space artifact, even he and his master wouldn't be able to do anything. If Longao fell for it, then everything would be easy. Would Longao fall for it? It was a complete joke. Not to mention Longao, no one would fall for such a thing.
And it was Longao.
Longao looked at the two people in front of him as if they were fools. He sneered and said, "God diviner, Yi Dugu, if I were the two of you, I would have gone home and bought a kilogram of tofu to kill myself. You can also refine the primal chaos tablet. What a shame. You want to die?" The god diviner could hold back, but that didn't mean Yi Dugu could. He roared and took a step forward. His entire body slashed toward Longao. However, no matter how fast Yi Dugu was, he couldn't be faster than Longao entering the primal chaos hall. In just an instant, Longao's body disappeared. Without a doubt, he had entered the space artifact. Chapter 2763. Longao, you coward. Yi Dugu roared furiously. Longao refused to fight him face to face. Each time, he would hide in his spatial divine item. He had power, but he couldn't use it. How could he not be angry? There was nothing he could do. Dugu, calm down. Father, how can I calm down? You and I have both seen Longao's power. Killing him would be easy. But now, Longao is relying on his spatial divine item. The two of us can't do anything. How could the god diviner not understand Yi Dugu's anger? He would be lying if he said he wasn't angry. So what if he was angry? Could anger solve anything? Because of this, the god diviner was much calmer than Yi Dugu. He knew that Longao had infuriated the two of them because he had seen this point and wanted to escape.
Dugu.
Longao couldn't understand a spiritual sense transmission. Yi Dugu, who had been furious and impulsive, instantly calmed down when he heard the god diviner's spiritual sense transmission. His father was right. They were dealing with Longao. They couldn't fall for Longao's trap. They had gone to great lengths to imprison Longao. If they failed now, who knew if they would have another chance in the future? That was especially true now that they knew that Longao had already devoured the primal chaos tablet. That made them even more apprehensive. Longao hadn't refined the primal chaos tablet yet. They were worried that Longao might one day refine the primal chaos tablet and become the ruler of the starry sky. Father, what should we do? If this continues, we won't be able to do anything. How could the god diviner not know what Dugu meant? Now that things had reached this point, he had no good ideas. Otherwise, he wouldn't have had to stay here and let Longao provoke them. They continued to be in a deadlock. As for outside the martial heaven continent, Yunlu was still crazily attacking. Yunlu was also very surprised. He hadn't expected the god diviner and Yi Dugu to be so patient. He hadn't expected the sky martial plane to be so strong. He had been attacking for an hour, but the sky martial plane hadn't been damaged at all. If he hadn't experienced it himself, he would have found it hard to believe. Of course, Yunlu knew that the sky martial plane was only a mid-grade plane. It wasn't a plane that existed on its own. Under normal circumstances, he could easily destroy such a mid-grade plane with just a flick of his finger. But what was the result? What was the reason? He could not figure it out. However, Yunlu's intuition told him that the sky martial plane he was attacking was definitely not simple. Now, he had no other choice. In order to not reveal himself, he could only make a move in secret. Qian'er, you stay here. I'm preparing to enter the sky martial continent.
Huh?
Hearing that her father wanted to enter the sky martial continent, Yun Qian was very curious. Was her father not afraid of the divine mathematician and Yi Dugu finding out? As if he could guess what Qian'er was thinking, Yunlu smiled. My attacks outside are useless. The god diviner and Yi Dugu won't come out. If that's the case, it'll be extremely difficult for the Longao to take over the martial heaven continent. Father, I'll have to trouble you. You stay here obediently. Remember, no matter what happens in the sky martial continent, you have to remain calm. Otherwise, I know. Before Yunlu could finish, Yun Qian had already said it. Looking at his daughter in front of him, Yunlu sighed deeply and quickly left. Within the sky martial continent, Yunlu used a secret technique to enter the sky martial continent. From beginning to end, neither the god diviner nor Yi Dugu had sensed him. If he didn't have full confidence, Yunlu wouldn't have dared to casually step into the sky martial plane. Just for the Longao, Yunlu definitely wouldn't take the risk. After all, if the god diviner and Yi Dugu found out about this, the family would be in trouble for no reason. If he was at his peak, he could choose to ignore the two of them. However, the current situation was very special. The family definitely wouldn't want to provoke the two rulers of the starry sky for no reason. However, Yunlu wanted to see what was going on in the sky martial plane. One day later, the god diviner's expression changed. Father, what's wrong? Yi Dugu, who was thinking of a way to deal with Longao, asked impatiently when he saw his father's unsightly expression. Someone went to the primal chaos spring. It seems that person couldn't remain calm. At first, the two of them had thought that the person who had attacked the sky martial plane was helping the Longao. They had done this on purpose to draw the two of them away. Now it seemed that things weren't that simple. If that person wasn't doing this for the Longao, then it had to be for the primal chaos spring. Dugu, you stay here and guard it. The god diviner was extremely worried about the primal chaos spring. He had guarded the sky martial plane for so many years precisely to guard the primal chaos spring. If it was discovered or even destroyed, wouldn't all his efforts be wasted? In the next second, outside the primal chaos spring, Yunlu didn't leave. Instead, he stared at the primal chaos spring. He had never thought that there would be such a primal chaos spring in such a place. Yunlu, as expected, it's you. When did you become a coward? You only dared to hide and attack the sky martial plane? The god diviner's expression was ugly. Although he had guessed it, he didn't want to believe it. After all, unless it was absolutely necessary, neither of them wanted to shed all pretenses. That wouldn't benefit either of them. However, Yunlu was clearly provoking him. Furthermore, he had even discovered the primal chaos spring. That made the god diviner's expression sink. As if he could guess what the god diviner was thinking, Yunlu didn't care. He said, there's more than one primal chaos spring in the starry sky. Why are you so nervous? The god diviner wasn't surprised at all. The god diviner had already guessed that there were many primal chaos springs in the starry sky. However, he had only found one. Otherwise, he wouldn't have had to guard it so tightly. He was very depressed. God diviner, to tell you the truth, I know of no less than 3 such primal chaos springs. So what you're thinking is useless. Do you understand what I mean? Since that's the case, why are you doing this? I have no choice. With Longao and Qian Er's relationship, Yunlu didn't continue. However, the meaning behind his words was very clear. As long as the god diviner wasn't a fool, he would definitely be able to understand. So that's what it was. The god diviner finally understood why Yunlu hadn't been willing to openly attack him. He hadn't wanted to shed all pretenses with him. But even so, what could he do? For Longao, sooner or later, they would have to fight to the death. Chapter 2764. Even if he didn't want to, he knew that if Yunlu forced him, he wouldn't be able to avoid it. A battle of life and death was inevitable. Master Oracle, if it were any other time, I would definitely flatten the Sky Marshal Plane. But now, I have something important to do, and I don't want to fall out with you. Longao must die. Master Oracle's attitude was very clear. In order to deal with Longao, he wouldn't hesitate to provoke Yunlu. Both of them had their own ulterior motives, and they didn't want to provoke a powerful enemy. How about we each take a step back? Tell me. Master Oracle naturally didn't want to fight Yunlu to the death because Yunlu was too mysterious. He could vaguely sense that Yunlu wasn't as simple as he seemed. If it weren't for Longao, he would have chosen to compromise. As long as Longao doesn't die, anything else is fine. No problem.
Huh.
Yunlu was a little surprised to hear Master Oracle agree so readily. He knew the grudge between them the best, but Master Oracle was actually willing to spare Longao's life. How could Master Oracle not know what Yunlu was thinking? His Yuan spirit will enter reincarnation. As for whether he can successfully reincarnate, it will depend on his fortune. So that's how it was. Yunlu knew that this was Master Oracle's bottom line. If it weren't for his strength, Master Oracle would have killed Longao. Being able to do this was already a blessing in disguise. Under the premise that he couldn't attack, this was all he could do. He just hoped that Qian wouldn't blame him when she learned about this. Difficulties. Family. He sighed helplessly in his heart. Longao, this is all I can help you. For the family, I can only choose to give up. If you're lucky, you can be together with Qian when you successfully reincarnate. I just hope that at that time, you won't provoke powerful existences that you can't fight. Brother Yun, what do you think? I have no problem with that. Master Oracle relaxed when he heard that. He was afraid that Yunlu would fight him to the death for Longao. At that time, who would win and who would lose would be unknown. Brother Yun, what secrets does the origin of primal chaos hold?
Please tell me.
For some reason, Master Godly Mathematician had a feeling that Yunlu seemed to know the secret of the source of primal chaos. All this time, Master Godly Mathematician believed that as long as he could comprehend the secrets of the primal chaos spring, he would be able to obtain the primal chaos stone tablet. Otherwise, he wouldn't have guarded the Tianwu plane for so many years. How can you be so sure that I know the secret of the spring of chaos? The more Yunlu acted like this, the more certain Master God Diviner was that Yunlu knew the secret of the origin of primal chaos. He suppressed the surprise in his heart. The God Diviner took a deep breath and said, "Please tell me." The origin of primal chaos is basically a channel. I'm afraid there are dozens of such channels in the entire vast starry sky. As for what a channel means, I can't tell you because you're not qualified to know.
Huh?
Not qualified? He was actually not qualified? If anyone else had said such a thing, Master God Diviner would have long since killed them. But this was Yunlu, and Master God Diviner knew that Yunlu had no reason to oppose him. Brother Yun, please explain. When you grasp primal chaos energy, I'll naturally tell you. But for now, I'll still say the same thing. You're not qualified. You also haven't grasped primal chaos energy. Yunlu didn't waste any more words. A terrifying energy suddenly erupted from his body. It was primal chaos energy. Master God Diviner retreated several steps in shock. So you've already grasped primal chaos energy. Master God Diviner was very curious. Since Yunlu had already grasped primal chaos energy, then his strength should be far above his own. Since that was the case, why did he have to compromise? Was there something fishy going on? Yunlu naturally knew about Master God Diviner's guess. He didn't hide anything. Back then, because of certain matters, I was heavily injured. Although I have grasped primal chaos energy, my strength has been greatly reduced. So that was the case. Even so, Master God Diviner was still shocked. He was very curious just how many more secrets the Peak Mystic race had. If that was the case, then the Peak Mystic race was the strongest existence in the starry sky. Master God Diviner, if you want to probe the origin of primal chaos, I'll give you a piece of advice. The matters of the starry sky are just a matter of the past. Grasping primal chaos energy is the key. Mastering the chaotic force sounded so simple, but it was extremely difficult to actually do it. Master God Diviner sighed deeply and said helplessly, Brother Yun, since you've already grasped primal chaos energy, then please tell me, how can I grasp primal chaos energy? Even if they weren't mortal enemies, they couldn't be considered friends. Especially when it came to the primal chaos tablet and primal chaos energy. If he rashly asked such a question, he definitely wouldn't answer. If it were anything else, then so be it. But when it came to primal chaos energy, Master God Diviner couldn't help himself. Do you think I'll tell you? If you can tell me the truth, then I'll owe you a favor. No matter what it is in the future, as long as it's not suicide, I'll agree to help you. How about it? In order to grasp the primal chaos energy in the primal chaos tablet, any price was worth it. Master God Diviner knew that if he could grasp primal chaos energy, he would be the strongest existence in the starry sky. Even if he encountered the white-clothed girl again, he wouldn't be so weak. He wouldn't be defeated in a single move. There's no harm in telling you, but what? As long as you tell me how to grasp primal chaos energy, I'll agree to any price you have to pay. Yunlu smiled. My request is very simple. As long as you agree, if my family needs your help in the future, you have to agree unconditionally. There's also another matter. No matter what method you use, you have to kill Longao. No matter how Master God Diviner thought about it, he had never thought it would be something like this. He really couldn't understand why Yunlu wanted him to kill Longao. Yunlu had almost shed all pretense of cordiality with him over whether or not to let Longao go. Furthermore, he had died and attacked the martial heaven plane. All of this had happened too suddenly. Brother Yun, what do you mean? Master God Diviner couldn't understand Yunlu's meaning. Could it be that Yunlu and Longao weren't as harmonious as they seemed on the surface? Were they secretly enemies? Or perhaps Yunlu didn't agree with Yun Qian and Longao being together, so he wanted to use Master God Diviner's strength to kill Longao. In that case, even if Master God Diviner killed Longao, it wouldn't have anything to do with Yunlu. That was definitely the best way. Chapter 2765. Yunlu sneered. Master God Diviner, you and I both devoured the primal chaos tablet. You can't deal with Longao for no reason. Yunlu nodded. Since things had already come to this, Master God Diviner didn't continue to hide it. He spoke of his worries. Could it be? Yunlu nodded gravely. What you're worried about is exactly what I'm worried about. According to my calculations, Longao will obstruct me and my family, so we must eliminate him as soon as possible. So that's how it was. It seemed that Longao wasn't a simple person. He might be able to calculate it, but Yunlu definitely wouldn't be wrong. Yunlu had already grasped the primal chaos energy within the primal chaos tablet. His ability to calculate was far above his own. He let out a deep sigh. Thinking for a moment, Master God Diviner said helplessly, Brother Yun, to tell you the truth, In all these years, no matter what we do, we've never been able to kill Longao. It's a bit strange. He really didn't want to mention this. To him, the matter of Longao was a complete disgrace, an enormous disgrace. How could Yunlu not know this? Since Longao can obstruct us, that means he's not simple. If he were so easy to deal with, you wouldn't believe it. Although that's the case, I can't rest until I kill Longao. Master God Diviner's face was extremely ugly. When he thought of how they couldn't kill Longao, he felt a headache coming on. I just received news that Longao didn't just obtain a Primal Chaos tablet. It said that he obtained all 12 of the Primal Chaos tablets in the Primal Chaos plane. Master God Diviner knew what 12 Primal Chaos tablets meant, and so did Yunlu. So that's how it is. If that's the case, then you and I must work together to deal with Longao. As for the conditions I just mentioned, no problem. Without even thinking, Master God Diviner agreed. It was just a condition. As long as he could control the Primal Chaos energy within the Primal Chaos tablet, then any price would be worth it. The two of them had been enemies, but in a few short minutes, they had become allies. Master God Diviner, I can't do anything about this. Regarding Yunlu's meaning, how could the divine mathematician not know? He already knew about the relationship between Yun Qian and Longao. If Yun Qian were to find out about this, he could imagine what would happen to Yun Qian and Yunlu. The current Master God Diviner was actually trying to curry favor with Yunlu. Brother Yun, leave this matter to me. As for how to control the Primal Chaos, one look at Divine Mathematician, and Yunlu already guessed roughly. Like I said, Master God Diviner, I'll tell you the method. As for whether or not you succeed, that's up to you. I can't help you. There was not the slightest doubt.
Please speak.
Inside the cave, when Master God Diviner returned, Yidugu's face flickered. With the addition of Yunlu and the Pinnacle Mysterious Tribe, they had more confidence in dealing with Longao. Father, what should we do now? Wait a moment, Dugu. You have to remember one thing. As long as we kill Longao, we'll get as many things as we can from Longao. Do you understand? Yidugu, of course, knew what his father was worried about. He nodded. Although Yunlu's participation had made dealing with Longao easier, everything had its pros and cons. It was impossible for Yunlu to take action for no reason. Even if he wanted to cut the weeds and eliminate the roots, he would definitely get some benefits. If it were other things, it would be fine. However, Longao's treasures and abilities were the only things that mattered. Putting everything else aside, just the Space Starry Sky Divine tool that Longao possessed, as well as the Shattering Starry Sky Divine ability, could not be measured with value. Even if they were to form a temporary alliance with Yunlu, Master God Diviner would definitely be on guard. Inside the Chaos Palace, Longao was also very anxious. Although he had the protection of the Chaos Palace and his safety was not an issue, this was not the way to go. He had to think of a solution as soon as possible. More time. The longer he delayed, the more disadvantageous it would be for him. Previously, he had already forcefully attacked the shackles around him. No matter how much strength he used, he could not break the shackles. If the first time was not enough, then the second, third, or even fourth time would not be enough. Since he knew it would not work, why waste time? Forcefully attacking was definitely not going to work. He had to think of another way to break the shackles. No matter how he thought about it, he could not think of a good way to deal with the shackles. The more he thought about it, the more helpless and angry he felt. Master God Diviner and Yidugu were really sparing no effort to deal with him. They had thought of everything. He still could not control the Chaos Palace. If he could do as he pleased, he could control the Chaos Palace and escape. At that time, Master God Diviner and Yidugu would only be able to stare at him. Since he could not think of a solution, Longao could only choose to cultivate. The most important thing was to refine the non-elemental Chaos Stone tablet in his body. As long as he could successfully refine it and become the ruler of the universe, he would be able to leave at any time without the help of the Chaos Palace. Assimilating the primal chaos steels was a simple task, but actually doing it was extremely difficult. Back when Master God Diviner and the others had tried to assimilate the primal chaos steels, it had taken them countless years to do so. And it wasn't just Yongqi. Not even his family members had been able to successfully assimilate the primal chaos steels and become the sovereign lord of the starry sky. From this, one could imagine just how difficult it was to successfully refine the Chaos Stone Tablet and become the ruler of the universe. The attributeless primal Chaos Stone Tablet in Longao's body was like an old monk in meditation. No matter how Longao refined it, it didn't move at all. According to what his grandfather and the others had said, although they were unable to completely refine their own primal Chaos Stone Tablets, they had more or less refined them a little. At the very least, they had a glimmer of hope, unlike him, who didn't even have a glimmer of hope. Sometimes Longao even wanted to give up. If he continued like this, in the end, he would not be able to refine the non-elemental Chaos Stone Tablet. Wouldn't that be a waste of time? His heart was very depressed, but in the end, Longao chose to persevere. That was because when he had been ridiculed by everyone, he had persevered for a full 10 years. Even if he had not encountered the Dragon Seal's help, he would still have persevered. The situation with the non-elemental Chaos Stone Tablet was almost exactly the same as before. Longao was very clear that since he had chosen to devour the non-elemental Chaos Stone Tablet, no matter how long it would take, he would not choose to give up. 1 year, 10 years, 10,000 years, or even 1,000,000,000,000 years he would wait. He would wait until the moment he truly refined the non-elemental Chaos Stone Tablet. Just like that, Longao did not continue to think about anything else. Instead, he wholeheartedly focused on refining the non-elemental Chaos Stone Tablet. Chapter 2766. Inside the Primal Chaos Palace. Longao suddenly sensed that Master Godly Mathematician and Yidugu had left the cave. He was very curious about what they were up to. Did they choose to give up? That shouldn't be possible. Since things were already like this, the two would not give up until they killed him. How could they choose to give up so easily? Just as Longao was wondering why the two had chosen to leave, the cave suddenly changed. The situation suddenly changed. The confinement of the entire cave began to shrink. Although the speed was not very fast, Longao was very clear about what it meant for the current situation. So that's how it is. Longao was not a fool. Of course, he knew what the two were up to. Compressing the Primal Chaos Palace, destroying the Primal Chaos Palace, and forcing him out. If it were any other Primal Chaos Palace, they would not be able to withstand the compression. But the Primal Chaos Palace. Longao had full confidence in the Primal Chaos Palace. Even if it was compressed, it would not be able to destroy the Primal Chaos Palace. Longao did not go out. The reason was simple. Although Master Godly Mathematician and Yidugu had left the cave, as long as he left the Primal Chaos Palace, he would undoubtedly be compressed immediately. At that time, he would not even have the chance to enter the Primal Chaos Palace. There was no need to take the risk. If there was a 50% chance, Longao would be willing to try.
But there was no need for that now.
A little impatience spoils great plans. Outside the cave. This time, it was not only Master Godly Mathematician and Yidugu. Even Yunlu, who had never appeared, began to help the two. Whether it was Master Godly Mathematician or Yunlu, they had already calculated that Longao would be their obstacle and variable. Since that was the case, they might as well cut the weeds and eliminate the roots to prevent future trouble. Father, is the compression and imprisonment able to destroy this space divine tool in Longao's hands? For some reason, Yidugu did not have any confidence. After all, Longao's Primal Chaos Palace was too powerful. It was so powerful that it was a little abnormal. How could Master Godly Mathematician not know what Yidugu was thinking? He looked at Yunlu. Because Yunlu was the one who thought of this method, and Yunlu was personally helping, Yunlu had the greatest say in whether it would succeed or not. The two sides were in a cooperative relationship, but Yunlu was in a dominant position. The reason was simple. Master God Diviner still hoped to rely on Yunlu to obtain primal chaos energy. How could Yunlu not know what these two people were thinking? He seemed to be very confident. Yunlu looked at the cave in front of him and said with a smile, "The three of us worked together to compress the confinement of the cave. Even so, we still couldn't break Longao's starry sky divine artifact. This can only mean one thing, but it's basically impossible." What possibility? I'm only guessing because it's simply impossible. How could such a divine artifact appear in the vast starry sky? Always talking in riddles. Master God Diviner and Yi Dugu were furious, but they didn't do anything. Please tell me. Forget it. You don't have the qualifications to know about this. However, since we are allies, I will reveal a little to you. If the three of us can't destroy the starry sky divine artifact in Longao's hand, then it can only mean one thing. Intuition told Master Godly Mathematician and Yi Dugu that Longao's spatial divine artifact was definitely not simple. What kind of starry sky divine artifact was it? It has always been known in the vast starry sky that the most powerful things are starry sky divine artifacts. Even the top starry sky divine artifacts can't withstand our joint efforts. I believe the two of you should be very clear about this. They nodded. This was also what the two of them were most curious about. They had seen countless starry sky divine artifacts in the vast starry sky, but they had never seen such a powerful spatial divine artifact. Not only could they not lock onto it, but they couldn't even destroy it. If they hadn't seen it with their own eyes, they would have found it hard to believe. There must be something fishy about it. Brother Yun, what is the reason? Because the starry sky divine artifact in Longao's hand is not a starry sky divine artifact at all. A starry sky divine artifact is not a starry sky divine artifact? What did that mean? Yunlu's words confused the two of them. They didn't know what he meant. How could a starry sky divine artifact not be a starry sky divine artifact? If it wasn't a starry sky divine artifact, then what was it? This is a secret that very few people know. In fact, in the vast starry sky, there is a kind of divine artifact that is completely superior to starry sky divine artifacts. However, this kind of divine artifact will never appear. Master Godly Mathematician and Yi Dugu were completely shocked. They had never imagined that there was a divine artifact that was even more powerful than starry sky divine artifacts. The two of them indeed didn't know about it, let alone others. As for whether Yunlu was telling the truth or not, it was still unknown. However, the two of them chose to believe him because they knew very well that Yunlu didn't need to deceive them. Brother Yun, what kind of divine artifact is that? Master Godly Mathematician couldn't figure it out. Since this kind of legendary divine artifact would never appear, then what was going on with Longao's divine artifact? They were almost certain that the divine artifact in Longao's hand wasn't an ordinary starry sky divine artifact, but a divine artifact that was superior to starry sky divine artifacts, as Yunlu had just said. Master Godly Mathematician Yi Dugu, you should know that the primal chaos stone tablets we devoured are actually chaos divine artifacts. However, you can't control the primal chaos stone tablets, so you don't know the power of the primal chaos stone tablets. I can tell you clearly that the primal chaos stone tablets are much more powerful than you can imagine. No matter how powerful a starry sky divine artifact is, it is trash in front of the primal chaos stone tablets. The two of them seemed to have understood something and nodded. That's right. The primal chaos stone tablet was indeed a divine artifact above the starry sky divine artifacts. It was the primal chaos divine artifact that Yunlu spoke of. This primal chaos divine artifact was indeed incomparably powerful. And the secret domain that a half-step starry sky ruler devoured wasn't a real primal chaos divine artifact, but a pseudo-primal chaos divine artifact. This kind of primal chaos stone tablet is slightly stronger than starry sky divine artifacts, but it can't be compared to the real primal chaos divine artifacts. So that was it. Brother Yun, according to what you said, the divine artifact in Longao's hand is very likely a primal chaos divine artifact. Yunlu nodded and said, Although we still don't know if we can destroy this divine artifact, I can almost say that the divine artifact in Longao's hand is definitely a primal chaos divine artifact. Although I don't know how he obtained it, I can be sure of one thing, and that is that Longao hasn't truly mastered this primal chaos divine artifact. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to keep Longao here. Both Master Godly Mathematician and Yi Dugu were completely shocked when they heard Yunlu's words. They had never imagined that the so-called primal chaos divine artifact would be so powerful. It was a little unbelievable. Chapter 2767. Everything was a guess. Whether or not Longao's Starry Sky divine artifact was a chaos divine artifact was still unknown. The three of them frantically compressed the cave, which was the same as compressing the seal within. Time passed quickly. A day and a night passed in the blink of an eye. Lu Yun waved his hand. Yunlu said with certainty, "There's no need to seal it. I'm almost certain that the spatial divine artifact in Longao's hand is a genuine chaos divine artifact." Just as he had expected. In truth, Yi Dugu and the Master God Diviner had already guessed that the seal could not destroy Longao's Starry Sky divine artifact. They feared that Longao's Starry Sky divine artifact was a chaos divine artifact. Now they were in big trouble. The two of them now knew how terrifying a chaos divine artifact was. As long as Longao had this chaos divine artifact, it would be almost impossible to kill Longao. Both Yi Dugu and the Master God Diviner's faces were extremely gloomy and unsightly. It seemed that they would be disappointed again. The two of them said nothing. How could Yunlu not know what they were thinking? He said helplessly, "I also did not expect that Longao would obtain a chaos divine artifact. It is truly hard to imagine that a chaos divine artifact would exist in the vast cosmos." Even the Master God Diviner and the Master God Diviner could not figure it out. "Brother Yin, do you have a way to deal with Longao?" The two of them did not have the slightest understanding of chaos divine artifacts, but they were very clear on one thing. Chaos divine artifacts were extremely powerful. It was almost impossible to destroy a Starry Sky divine artifact. For now, I don't have a good idea of how to deal with a chaos divine artifact. The only thing we can do now is trap Longao while we think of other ways to deal with Longao. At this point, there was nothing else they could do. Yi Dugu guarded the cave, while Yunlu chose to leave. As for the Master God Diviner, he followed Yunlu's instructions and tried to see if he could control the chaos energy within the tablet. Within the Chaos Palace, Longao was not worried in the slightest. He had full confidence in the primal Chaos Palace that he owned. However, this was not the way to go. Time was of the essence. He had to risk it. Longao naturally did not want to stay here. Yi Dugu was the only one outside. As for the Master God Diviner, he did not know where he had gone. Opportunity. And also danger. Longao didn't care about that. If he wanted to leave the Martial Heaven continent smoothly, he had to take risks. Otherwise, he would be trapped here forever. In the next second, Longao. Yi Dugu didn't place Longao in his eyes. What he truly feared was the Longao's primal chaos divine item. If it weren't for the fact that Longao had been hiding inside the primal chaos divine item, how could he have survived until now? Longao had given up on entering the primal chaos divine item. It was clear that he wanted to force his way out. If Yi Dugu couldn't keep Longao here, he wouldn't be able to get through this trial. Longao could be considered to have gone all out, his entire person heading towards the entrance. However, Yi Dugu was guarding the entrance. It was impossible to force a ruler of the Starry Sky out of the cave. For others, it was almost certain death. But Longao gave Yi Dugu a sliver of hope. With the chaotic axe in his hand, Longao did not hesitate at all. He used all his strength and slashed at Yi Dugu. Longao used all the strength in his body. His surroundings started to shake violently. Countless cracks in space appeared, as if they were going to swallow everything. Even Yi-Dugu was afraid of Longao's shattering starry sky. So, what if he swallowed the primal chaos tablet? As long as he was swallowed by the cracks in space, he would still be in danger. He would be lying if he said he wasn't afraid. If it had been a large-scale battle, he wouldn't have been afraid of Longao. Only the entrance was so narrow. If he wasn't careful, he would be consigned to eternal damnation. He knew that if he dodged, Longao would escape. But in the end, Yi-Dugu was still afraid. He flashed away from the entrance. Yi-Dugu was delighted. Longao wouldn't let this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity slip by. Taking advantage of Yi-Dugu's fear, he took a step forward and teleported through the cracks in space. In the blink of an eye, he had disappeared without a trace. In fact, Longao's teleportation was also very dangerous. If he wasn't careful, he would also be consigned to eternal damnation. If it were any other time, Longao wouldn't do this. But he had to do it now because he didn't have many chances. If he missed this opportunity, who knew if he would be able to leave the cave smoothly? Besides that, if the clairvoyant master returned in time, the difficulty of leaving the cave would be doubled if the two of them joined forces. Therefore, Longao decided to take the risk and give it a try. "I'm going to kill you." Yi-Dugu was completely furious. He never thought that Longao would leave right under his nose, even after using all his strength to stop him. The anger in his heart was self-evident. His father had given him the heavy responsibility of guarding this place, but he didn't succeed in stopping Longao. Shame, a great shame. As soon as Longao left, Yi-Dugu immediately followed. The two of them, one in front and one behind, were moving at an extreme speed. Scarlet Flame Town, above the ruins. As soon as Longao left the cave, he entered the Primal Chaos Hall. Without any restrictions, entering the Primal Chaos Hall was something that could be done in a matter of minutes. Fury. Endless fury. A few minutes later, the Oracle Master appeared. Looking at Yi-Dugu's expression, he understood what had happened. His expression was also ugly, but he didn't regret it. After all, in order to control primal chaos energy, he could give up everything. "Dugu, this isn't your fault. It's very difficult for you to trap Longao on your own. However, I've already sealed the Martial Heaven continent. If Longao wants to leave, He was worried that Longao would leave the cave. The Oracle Master and Yunlu had already joined hands to seal the Martial Heaven continent. The Oracle Master was completely confident that even Longao wouldn't be able to break the seal and leave. Although he also knew that this was the case, but when he thought of Longao leaving like this under his own eyes, it was really a bit shameful. He couldn't face his father, and similarly, he couldn't face himself. "Father, I won't rest until I kill Longao." Chapter 2768. How could the God Diviner not know his son's fury? No matter who it was, they would also be furious. A mere peak starry sky immortal had been provoked time and time again right under the nose of a starry sky ruler. It was a bit humiliating. Even the God Diviner was furious. Forcibly suppressing his fury, the God Diviner said, "Dugu, as long as Longao is still on the Martial Heaven continent, we can kill him. He'll definitely die." Gradually, Yi-Dugu began to calm down. At this time, no matter how angry he was, it was useless. "Father, did you succeed?" The God Diviner naturally knew what Yi-Dugu was asking. He helplessly shook his head. "I already tried. Yunlu didn't deceive us. His method truly does give us a chance to obtain primal chaos energy." Hearing his father's words, Yi-Dugu was delighted. He was delighted to the extreme. "Father, does that mean we have a chance to obtain primal chaos energy?" Yi-Dugu was extremely clear on what it meant to obtain primal chaos energy. His father had spent countless years trying to control the primal chaos energy within the primal chaos stone tablets, but he had still failed. Any starry sky ruler who had refined a primal chaos stone tablet would want to control the primal chaos energy within. Thinking about it was one thing, but actually doing it was incomparably difficult. What was going on? Looking at his depressed father, Yi Dugu finally sensed that something was wrong. What was going on? Had his father failed? As expected. Yunlu's method might give us a chance to control primal chaos energy, but it's only a chance.
To succeed, sigh.
Yi Dugu sighed heavily. The god diviner helplessly continued, Dugu, other than this method, we really don't have a better one. So we have to continue. This was their only chance. They couldn't give it up. Yi Dugu and the god diviner left. The way they saw it, as long as Longao was still on the martial heaven continent, they would be able to kill Longao. Time? So, what if Longao had devoured the primal chaos stone tablets? Devouring the primal chaos stone tablets didn't mean he could refine them. There was a fundamental difference between the two. At the entrance to the martial heaven continent, Longao had tried countless times, but he had never succeeded in breaking the seal and leaving the martial heaven continent. There was almost no need to ask. Longao could also guess who was the culprit. This was truly a troublesome matter. What should he do? Longao's face was very solemn. However, at this moment, a figure came from not far away in the blink of an eye. Yunlu's. Longao wasn't the slightest bit surprised by Yunlu's sudden appearance. He had already guessed that the person who had attacked the martial heaven continent was Yunlu. Because of Yun Qian, it seemed that Yunlu wanted to help him. Thank you. Yunlu naturally understood the meaning behind Longao's words, but he didn't say anything. He nodded and said, Longao, I want to ask you, where exactly did you get this chaotic divine artifact? Chaos divine artifact? What was a chaos divine artifact? Longao had no idea what Yunlu was talking about. Could it be that he was referring to the primal chaos palace? Did Longao not know? It wasn't strange that he didn't know. After all, there were only a few people in the starry sky who knew about chaotic divine artifacts. It was normal that Longao didn't know. Longao, you were able to block the combined attacks of the God Diviner and Yi Dugu. If my guess isn't wrong, this spatial divine artifact you possess should be a chaotic divine artifact. Yunlu didn't conceal anything about chaotic divine artifacts. He gave Longao a rough explanation. Longao was also very surprised, because he never thought that, in his knowledge, the top starry sky divine tool was the most powerful, and there was an even more powerful existence above the starry sky divine tool, the chaotic divine tool. All of a sudden, why are you doing this? What did you say? Longao smiled. Yunlu, you may be very cautious, but you can't hide it from me. If you hadn't formed an alliance with the God Diviner, why would you appear here? I'm just very curious. Why would you join forces with the God Diviner to deal with me? Yunlu wasn't surprised at all because he knew very well that since he had chosen to appear at this time, as long as Longao wasn't a fool, he would definitely be able to guess the reason.
There was no doubt about that.
Longao, I've dealt with you before. You asked me why, so I'll tell you the reason now. Longao nodded. He and Yunlu didn't seem to be enemies but friends. The two of them came to a secluded mountain peak with a decent environment and sat down together. Longao didn't say anything because he also wanted to know the reason why Yunlu had repeatedly tried to deal with him.
Please.
Longao picked up the wine cup on the table and drained it in one gulp. I've also devoured the God Diviner Chaos Tablet. Moreover, I've already grasped the chaotic force within the tablet. Although my strength has been greatly reduced, my divination ability is still far superior to the God Diviner. Yunlu nodded. Yunlu did not doubt this at all. As for the primal chaos stone tablets that the two of them had devoured, regardless of whether or not there was a difference in grade, just in terms of grasping the power of primal chaos, Yunlu was far ahead of Master God Diviner. There was one thing that Yunlu was very correct about. Even if his strength had been greatly reduced, he had still grasped chaotic force. Longao still didn't say anything. He didn't know what Yunlu meant. The reason why I dealt with you back then was because I vaguely deduced that you would be the nemesis of our family and obstruct us. If it were you, what would you do? So that was the case. Longao had never really believed in the divination ability of the god diviner and Yunlu. It was the same for Yunlu, who had grasped chaotic force. If the divination ability was so terrifying, he would already be dead. How could he still be sitting here? Originally, I didn't plan on becoming enemies with you, especially with your relationship with Qian. However, as you grew stronger and stronger and even devoured the chaos tablet, I made a divination on you. Although I still can't divine anything, I can be sure of one thing. You will definitely be a formidable opponent that obstructs our family in the future. In order to solve a future problem for our family, I have to kill you. I hope you won't blame me. Too shameless. However, Longao didn't mind at all. In his opinion, there were no eternal enemies or eternal friends in this world. Chapter 2769. Do you think you can kill me? If it were anyone else, they would have been scared to death by so many rulers of Starry Sky. Only Longao didn't care. Longao, I know you have a Chaos Divine artifact, but you have to know that no matter how powerful it is, you haven't fully grasped it. So, if we want to kill you, we still. Impatience was written all over his face. Since they were already enemies, Longao didn't want to give Yunlu any face. He interrupted him and said, Yunlu, I'm also looking forward to seeing how you do it. Yunlu's expression didn't look good either. Longao was provoking him. In that case, without waiting for Yunlu to finish speaking, Longao's figure had already instantly disappeared without a trace. Yunlu's expression darkened. The reason why Longao was so arrogant was not because of his own strength, but because he had a chaos divine tool that was impossible to appear. A short while later, Master Godly Mathematician and Yi Dugu arrived at the same time. Brother Yun, how is it? Yunlu sighed deeply and said helplessly, if we want to kill Longao, we have to deal with the Chaos Divine Artifact first. Deal with the Chaos Divine Artifact? It was easy to say, but it was very difficult to do. The three of them joined forces to compress and imprison, but they were still unable to destroy the Chaos Divine weapon. This in itself already showed how powerful the Chaos Divine weapon in Longao's hand was. Master Godly Mathematician and Yi Duga's expressions were ugly. They didn't expect the situation to be so troublesome. They had never encountered such a situation before. They didn't know what kind of luck Longao had to get his hands on a Chaos Divine artifact. Brother Yun, is there really no way? If there was a way, Longao wouldn't be so arrogant. If even Yunlu couldn't do anything, they didn't know who else in the universe could deal with Longao. The more they thought about it, the more depressed they felt. The more they thought about it, the more helpless they felt. Outside the Tianwu plain, seeing her father return, Yun Qian asked impatiently, Father, how did it go? Yun Qian had no doubts about her father's strength and ability. Qian, from now on, you must sever all ties with Longao.
Why is that?
Yun Qian's expression changed. She didn't know why her father wanted to break them up for no reason. Even if he didn't want to help, it was fine.
But why?
Originally, Yunlu didn't want to say it and kept it from Qian. However, after meeting Longao, not only had he confirmed that Longao's Starry Sky God artifact was a Chaos God artifact, but he had also devoured the Primal Chaos Stone Tablet. If he didn't get rid of this obstacle as soon as possible, it would be like letting a tiger return to the mountains and creating a future threat. A short pain is better than a long pain. If he didn't break it now, it would be even harder to break it in the future. It was precisely because he thought of this that Yunlu decided to cut the Gordian knot and completely cut off Qian and Longao. Then, he told Zhang Xian about his deduction. Yun Qian was completely dumbfounded after listening to her father's words. She was very clear about her father's decision. If there was something that harmed the family, not to mention Longao, even the marvelous mathematician and the others would still take action without any hesitation. Together in life and death. She didn't say much. Just 4 simple words were enough to explain everything. It also represented Yun Qian's attitude. Yunlu didn't care at all. Just as Yun Qian thought, Yunlu could give up everything for the clan. Although he only had one daughter, if he had to choose between the clan and his daughter, Yunlu would definitely choose the clan and give up his daughter. Originally, Yunlu had only vaguely deduced that for Qian he was still prepared to help Longao. However, after stepping into the sky martial plane, Yunlu's deduction seemed to be more and more realistic. He had to reconsider. If Longao really became an obstacle to the clan in the future, then he wouldn't even have the chance to regret it. I can take a step back. When the time comes, as long as Longao is willing, I can spare his life. However, you must destroy his dantian and take away everything to suppress him. Yun Qian knew very well that this was her father's biggest concession. However, she still couldn't agree. If she did, then at least she wouldn't be able to pass the test. Father, I still adhere to my principles. The father and daughter looked at each other, neither of them willing to give way to the other. All of a sudden, Yunlu smiled and said, Perhaps others don't know father's methods, but you should know. Not only can I seal you, but I can also take away all your memories of Longao. From now on, even if you meet Longao again, you will be strangers. Yun Qian's eyes suddenly lit up. She naturally knew that her father wasn't joking. Just as she was about to find an opportunity to leave, she found that she couldn't move at all. Even if she wanted to kill herself, she couldn't. The thing she was most worried about had happened. Yunlu sent Yun Qian back to the clan as quickly as possible. Not only did he seal her, but he also used a secret art to erase all her memories of Longao. Not only that, but he also brought Yun He and Yun Tian back to the Sky Martial Continent. Not only that, but under Yunlu's suggestion, Long Mie and the other three who had left also rushed back. This way, the Sky Martial Continent had a total of 9 rulers of the Starry Sky. Once they joined forces, it was obvious what the result would be. That wasn't all. The other 4 rulers of the Starry Sky hadn't come. The Slaughter ruler Ruamu, the Lightning ruler Luomu, the Devouring ruler Yi Jimei, and the Undying Tyrant Body ruler Xiantong. Other than Xiling and Longchong, the other 12 rulers of the Starry Sky had all come to the Sky Martial Continent. Adding on Yunlu's group of 3, there were now 13 rulers of the Starry Sky in the Sky Martial Plane. The 13 rulers of the Starry Sky were the strongest existences in the Starry Sky. Let alone the 13 of them joining forces. Just any one of them could cause the Starry Sky to tremble. If this matter spread, it was unknown whether it would shake the entire Starry Sky. Of the 13, Xiantong and Longao could be considered friends. As for Luomu and Ruomu, they had no enmity with Longao. However, due to the others, the 3 of them could only join forces to deal with Longao. Whether or not they were sincere was unknown. The God Diviner didn't hide the fact that Yunlu had grasped primal chaos energy. In his opinion, as long as he told them this, he would be able to use Yunlu to suppress them. Otherwise, it would be very difficult for them to join forces to deal with Longao. However, the God Diviner and Yunlu didn't mention how they had grasped primal chaos energy. It could be said that although they had temporarily formed an alliance, they each had their own ulterior motives. One moment, they might be friends, but the next they might be enemies. Chapter 2770. Although Longao was in the Primal Chaos Palace, he knew exactly what was happening outside. 13 powerful auras were unbridled, locking onto every part of the Martial Heaven continent. 13 rulers of the Starry Sky. Once they joined hands, it was obvious what that meant. Could he resist them? It was complete nonsense. Even in a one-on-one fight, he couldn't defeat any of the rulers of the Starry Sky. What should he do? Even Longao didn't have the slightest idea of what to do in this situation. But all of this was enough for Longao to be proud. Think about it. In the countless years of the Starry Sky, just how many people had been able to do this? Longao was definitely the first person in history to have attracted 13 rulers of the Starry Skies to join forces. Within the Primal Chaos Palace, Longao's face was very dignified. He helplessly thought of all kinds of ways, but after thinking it over and over again, wanting to escape from the joint forces of 13 star rulers was almost like a fool's dream. It was simply impossible. If I can refine the non-attributed primal chaos tablet and become a ruler of the starry sky, all my problems will be solved. Thinking of the non-attributed primal chaos tablet in his body, Longao felt a deep sense of helplessness. Refine, refine, refine. No matter how hard he tried, he was unable to refine the non-attributed primal chaos tablet in his body. He didn't even have the slightest idea of how to do it. It would be a lie to say that he wasn't oppressed. The more he thought about it, the more helpless he felt. Longao definitely didn't want to sit and wait for death. After all, while the 13 rulers could wait, he might not be able to. Who knew what would happen next? He had to think of a way to leave the Martial Heaven continent as soon as possible. As the saying went, revenge was a dish best served cold. As long as he could leave the Martial Heaven continent, there would be a day when he could refine the non-attributed primal chaos tablet in his body. As long as he became a ruler of the starry sky, he would be able to take his revenge. As long as there was life, there was hope. Thinking of that, Longao decided to go all out. After all, staying in the primal chaos palace wasn't beneficial to him. The longer he delayed, the more disadvantageous it would be for him. He couldn't let the disadvantageous situation get worse. He had to take the initiative. Taking the initiative to attack was Longao's usual behavior. The 13 astral dominators spread out in different directions and began a thorough search. Since things had already reached this point, the God Diviner didn't hesitate. He directly killed everyone on the Martial Heaven continent. No matter who it was, even a half-step starry sky ruler was an ant-like existence in the eyes of these so-called starry sky rulers. This matter must not be leaked out. 13 rulers of the stars had joined forces to deal with Longao. If news of this spread, it was easy to imagine what the consequences would be. No matter who it was, they couldn't afford to lose face. They couldn't find him? All 13 of them were extremely shocked. Even Yun Lu was no exception. Yun Lu naturally knew what a Chaos Divine artifact meant. If Longao could wield a Chaos Divine weapon, it would be excusable even if they could not lock onto or destroy the Chaos Divine weapon.
But now?
Longao hadn't truly grasped a Chaos Divine weapon. Even if they joined forces, they couldn't lock onto or destroy the Chaos Divine weapon. Once Longao truly grasped a Chaos Divine weapon, it was unimaginable. The more this was the case, the more certain Yun Lu was that he had to kill Longao. He couldn't allow Longao to become an obstacle to his family in the future. He had to cut the weeds and eliminate the roots. Aside from killing Longao, the 13 astral dominators all had the same goal. That was to kill Longao as well as take all the treasures and divine abilities on Longao's body, including a Chaos Divine weapon and a divine ability that could shatter the starry sky. Even the starry sky ruler coveted Longao's treasures and divine abilities, not to mention other people, but also the starry sky ruler. It was easy to imagine how powerful Longao's treasures and divine abilities were. If they wanted to kill Longao, they had to first lock onto Longao's location. As the 13 strongest astral dominators in the vast universe, they had searched every nook and cranny of the universe, but still found nothing. It was unbelievable. Brother Yun, what should we do now? If this continues, we won't be able to continue. If Longao doesn't appear and refine the Chaos Divine weapon, we won't be able to trap Longao. Longao hadn't even refined the Chaos Divine weapon to become an astral dominator, but he was already so difficult to deal with. It was hard to imagine. What would happen if Longao truly refined the Chaos Divine weapon and became an astral dominator? How could Yun Lu not understand Master God Diviner's worries? Yun Lu was also worried about what Master God Diviner was worried about. It wasn't that Yun Lu feared Longao refining the Chaos Divine weapon, but that he had already deduced that Longao would become a hindrance to him and his family in the future. He had to be eliminated as soon as possible. Yun Lu was very confident in his family's strength. Taking a step back, Even if Longao really did refine the Chaos Divine weapon and become an astral dominator, his family's strength would be enough to deal with Longao. It's because of the environment. I don't have a better solution. Unless we can find an even more powerful Chaos Divine weapon, we might be able to restrain Longao's Chaos Divine weapon. An even more powerful Chaos Divine weapon? What a joke. If Yunlu hadn't said so, Master God Diviner and the others wouldn't even know what a Chaos Divine weapon was. In their opinion, Longao's Chaos Divine weapon was already very powerful. How could he possibly find an even more powerful one? Even for them, it was impossible. Master God Diviner and the others didn't know what Yunlu meant. Could it be that Yunlu had an even more powerful Chaos Divine weapon? If that was the case, then all their problems wouldn't be a problem. As for Yunlu's problem, that was a problem for the future. It wasn't something they should consider now. Yunlu knew what Master God Diviner and the others were thinking. Since he had already spoken, there was no need to continue hiding it. In order to deal with Longao, especially at a time like this, he couldn't afford to let all his previous efforts go to waste. I do have an even more powerful Chaos Divine weapon. It's my family's most precious treasure. The reason he had taken out this Chaos Divine weapon was not only to deal with Longao, but also to intimidate Master God Diviner and the others. After all, his current strength was greatly reduced. With this Chaos Divine weapon as a deterrent, Master God Diviner and the others wouldn't dare to deal with his family, even if they were given 10,000 times more courage. A long sword appeared in Yunlu's hand. Its entire body was purplish-black. At a glance, sword light flashed. Was this the so-called Primal Chaos Stone Tablet that Yunlu spoke of? Was this the Primal Chaos Divine weapon that was above the Primal Chaos Divine weapon in Longao's hand? Chapter 2771. Sky Thunder Sword. Just as Yunlu had said, the Sky Thunder Sword in his hands was a Chaos God weapon. Whether or not the Sky Thunder Sword was above the Chaos God weapon in Longao's hands was still an unknown. However, Yunlu was rather confident in the Sky Thunder Sword in his hands. Brother Yun, this sword is a Chaos God weapon? That's right. I wonder if Brother Yun could let us witness the might of this sword. It wasn't just the godly mathematician. Everyone wanted to witness the might of a Chaos God weapon as well. Even though Longao had a Chaos God weapon in his hands, he did not have full control over it. Hence, he could not bring out the true might of a Chaos God weapon. However, Yunlu's situation was completely different.
It was still the same statement.
Even if Yunlu's strength was greatly reduced due to his injuries, he should be able to bring out the true might of a Chaos God weapon since he had already mastered the power of chaos. That was the reason why everyone wanted to see just how strong a Chaos God weapon was. As for Yunlu's problem, everyone, including the godly mathematician, had already thought about it. Since they couldn't beat Yunlu, they would definitely not offend him in the future. Yunlu and the pinnacle mysterious race were the true strongest existences in the universe. Nodding his head, he had wanted to intimidate Yunlu from the start. Words alone wouldn't work. He had to let everyone witness the true might of a Chaos God weapon. Watch carefully. The Sky Thunder Sword in Yunlu's hands began to emit a terrifying aura that covered the entire Heaven Martial World. With the protection of the Chaos Spring Origin, the Heaven Martial World would not be destroyed. That was the real reason why Yunlu dared to do this. Just at this moment, thunderclouds began to rumble across the entire Heaven Martial World. Boom, 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 boom,
Boom, boom, boom.
The moment the thunder boomed, everyone's faces changed. Under normal circumstances, since they had already become rulers of the universe, they should be immune to the power of thunder. Even the universe immortals would be immune to the power of thunder, let alone them. But right now, the situation was different. Everyone was able to clearly sense what the power of lightning summoned by the heavenly lightning sword in Yunlu's hand meant. This power of thunder was more than enough to threaten them. Was this the might of a chaos god weapon?
It was truly terrifying.
The more it was like this, the more greedy Master God Diviner and the others became. They wanted nothing more than to immediately obtain the Chaos Divine artifacts in Longao's possession, and even the Heavenly Lightning Sword in Yunlu's possession. However, no one dared to do so. This kind of power was enough to threaten their lives. When Yunlu saw that he had managed to intimidate everyone, he finally heaved a sigh of relief in his heart. What everyone saw might not be the truth. If Yunlu was at his peak, he would naturally be able to casually use the Heavenly Lightning Sword. However, the current situation was completely different. Back then, his injuries were too severe, causing Yunlu's strength to fall by a lot. Until now, he still had not completely recovered. In other words, although the current Yunlu could use the Heavenly Lightning Sword, it was absolutely not as easy as before. Moreover, he could only use it once or twice at most. If he were to forcefully continue, he might not be able to use the Heavenly Lightning Sword again when Longao appeared. If Yunlu didn't say anything, no one would know. Brother Yun, the Heavenly Lightning Sword in your hand is truly unexpected. It's too powerful. Yunlu sneered in his heart. How could he not know about the greed in the hearts of these people? If it was in the past, he could totally destroy these people. However, now is not the time. Half an hour later, Longao's figure suddenly appeared. In less than a second, all 13 rulers of the starry sky had arrived. At a glance, it was truly a spectacular sight. 13 rulers of the starry sky arriving at the same time was something that had not happened in 10,000 years. Longao, I have to admit that your courage is really commendable. Longya sneered. He never thought that Longao would dare to appear in such a situation.
He was simply courting death.
On the other hand, Longao was completely provoking the 13 of them. They chose to ignore him. Longya was furious but was stopped by Yunlu. He smiled and said, Longao, you already have nowhere to go. Let me give you a word of advice. Surrender without resistance, and I can spare your life. Yunlu, can you make the decision? Brother Yun can completely represent us. Longao's face was full of ridicule. He also chose to ignore Master Clairvoyant. Longao, as long as we cripple your cultivation and hand over all the treasures and divine abilities on you, the 13 of us will join forces to suppress you. At that time, we won't let Qian down. If that was really the case, it would be better for him to die. Longao would definitely not compromise with such an outcome. What a joke. He sneered. Yunlu, do you think I will agree? If Longao chose to compromise, he wouldn't be Longao. Yunlu said coldly, I will give you one last chance. Longao, do you think you can sit back and relax just because you have a chaotic divine artifact? Today, I want to see whether your chaotic divine artifact is stronger or my Heavenly Thunder Sword. Heavenly Thunder Sword? Looking at the purplish-black sword in Yunlu's hand, Longao's heart thumped. He wasn't a fool. Of course, he had already guessed that the sword in Yunlu's hand was very likely the chaotic divine artifact that Yunlu was talking about. If that was really the case, then things would be very troublesome. Although he was very confident in his primal chaos palace, if the Heavenly Thunder Sword in Yunlu's hand was really a chaotic divine artifact, then it was still unknown whether the primal chaos palace or the Heavenly Thunder Sword was stronger. If his primal chaos palace couldn't withstand the Heavenly Thunder Sword, then he would be in big trouble this time. Longao's expression changed again and again. Everyone smiled but did not say anything. From this, it could be seen that the Heavenly Thunder Sword in Yunlu's hand had indeed brought endless fear to Longao. However, there was more helplessness in their hearts. If they succeeded in killing Longao, how would they distribute the treasures and divine abilities in Longao's hand? Especially with Yunlu's current strength, even if he took all of them, no one would dare to say anything. They had already seen the might of the Heavenly Thunder Sword with their own eyes. As the saying went, it was better to be safe than sorry. If they were the unlucky one and became Yunlu's target, then the consequences would be unimaginable. Yunlu, if you don't try, no one will know whether your heavenly thunder sword or my chaotic divine artifact is stronger. However, I am confident in my chaotic divine artifact. I will also advise you to leave this place. Otherwise, if your heavenly thunder sword is destroyed by my chaotic divine artifact. Longao did not continue to speak, but the meaning in his words was already very clear. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.